Deli worker Glenette Kitt is suing her neighbor, auditor Tanya Gatson, for having her falsely arrested 4 times. Tanya is countersuing, claiming Glenette vandalized her car.
Order. All rise. Quiet in the courtroom, please. All rise. Shh. Your Honor, this is case number 328 on the calendar in the matter of Kitt versus Gadsden. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated.
Miss Kitt, do you have family?
Yes.
Tell me about your family. How many are in your family?
I have 6 and custody of 1 other, so that makes 7.
Is there a Mr. Kitt?
My son and my nephew.
Other than that?
No.
So you have no husband?
Right.
Miss Gadsden, you want to tell me how many people are in your family?
I live alone right now. I have 3 children. My oldest is living in Atlanta with her father. My young 2 smaller children are with their grandmother. I'm in the midst of a custody hearing. Actually, I have a court date on November 22nd.
Have those children ever lived with you in the past year?
They left about exactly a year ago.
You 2 ladies are neighbors. Each of you has a complaint against the other, suing the other for $5,000. The complaint is really grounded in various forms of harassment. You claim, Ms. Kitt, that the defendant had you falsely arrested on 4 separate occasions, and that she has made numerous phone calls about you to Child Protective Services, alleging that the children who are in your care are out unsupervised. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Gadsden says that you're making her life a holy hell, and she is counterclaiming. So why don't you, Ms. Kitt, first tell me how long you've been living in the house that you currently occupy?
I moved there exactly January 1st of year 2000.
And how long, Ms. Gadsden, have you been living there?
I moved there 94. I've been there 5 years.
So you've been there a long time?
Yes, ma'am.
Why don't you, in a couple of minutes, Ms. Kitt, tell me all about your case against Ms. Gadsden?
Well, about a week after moving there, my children were outside playing. It was right after Christmas. We had just moved there. I walked to the door, and Ms. Gadsden had a limousine come and pick her friend up. My kids, they admired it. They went outside to see, you know, run and play and look at it. When I seen them approach Ms. Gadsden's side of the street, they was like, wow. So Ms. Gadsden came out and said, y'all, MF's children are not used to seeing things like this. Get the hell away from my yard. So I walked over to her side of the street. I said, ma'am, I don't know you, but these are my children. Don't speak to them in that tone of manner. So I went on in the house, went to work maybe 2 days later. My kid's babysitter lives directly next door to Miss Gadsden. I brought you a picture.
She lives next door.
And I went to open the door to get my kids. Miss Gadsden opened her door and said, B.I., hopped and spit in my face. And it was, I just can't explain, but I knew I was going to get her. And I did. The same day, I hit her. I popped her in her mouth. Not even a year later, maybe about in April, I kept getting police calls and at my house at work. I come home one day, the social services was there. She told me that she had had complaints 1 week after another concerning my kids being unsupervised. So I took her to where my kids were at a babysitter, which was next door to Miss Gadsden. And they found no foundings. After they did all this, and I guess she couldn't have me locked up anymore, she started with having me arrested on false charges. I had to be bailed out of jail over and over and over again. Up until this day, I'm still being arrested.
Arrested?
Yes, arrested.
You have the police reports?
Yes, I do.
Can I see them, please?
I have some copies of those and the charges that were all dismissed.
How many times did you have her arrested for damaging your car?
2 times, ma'am.
Did you see her damage your car?
Yes, ma'am.
How come the charges were dismissed?
The photos that I'd asked a friend to drop off for me at Walmart, they did not get same day, development. They had 4 days. And when I went to court the next day, I had to wait until the day after court to get the photos. So the judge dismissed it because I didn't have proof, which made me very upset with my friend, of
Your
course.
Honor.
You think I believe that story? I don't believe that story for a minute. Let's go back a minute, Miss Gadsden. You have 2 young children. How old are your children?
6 and 8 years old.
The children were removed by social services?
Yes.
Yes.
They were not removed from me. They were placed with their father temporarily.
They were placed with their father by social services.
Okay. They were actually picked up. My oldest daughter was home with the children, and she walked out. She was, in a sense, envious of her two younger sisters. She thought that we had a closer relationship than she did. She'd come here from Georgia with her father, and she walked out and called the police and left the two children there. The police then took the children to to my licensed daycare provider.
Ms. Gadsden.
And then from there.
Is what you're telling me that you had a misunderstanding with your older daughter, and because there was a misunderstanding with her, she was jealous of the two younger children, she left them alone, and because of that, social services placed your two children with their father?
Right.
And they'd been with their father for over a year because of that?
No, ma'am. After placing them with him, well, they went immediately from my house to the licensed daycare provider that I had. From there, the father picked them up, and they allowed him to have temporary custody until I completed whatever needed to be done through the Division of Social Services.
But Ms. Gadsden, there's a major piece there that you're not telling me, and
yes,
I want you to tell you, I was in family court for 25 years. I don't know if it's substance abuse involved.
No, none.
I don't know if there were prior incidents of leaving the children alone. I'm not sure. I don't know. But I know that if what the original story that you told me was that this was a misunderstanding with your older daughter, that your two younger children would have been back in a blink. It was not that.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Have you ever been arrested for anything?
Yes, assault and battery.
What else?
Forgery.
After 92.
Petty larceny. I don't remember the years, but I know charges.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Lynette Kitt says neighbor Tanya Gadsden has had her falsely arrested on 4 separate occasions. Tanya says Lynette hangs out with drug dealers.
No. So now I hear a whole bunch of false arrests and a whole bunch of stuff that you've been aggravating her. Now let me hear how she's aggravated you.
If I may begin with, there are other people living in her house, and they are individuals that aren't on leases there. They reach in their socks and they give her things that she pays for at the door, and I have witnesses that have written statements, and I've kind of highlighted where the drugs are in our neighborhood, and there's definitely drug trafficking going on in that vicinity. My last day coming home to my home, I watched an individual walk up to Mrs. Kitt's window. There is an individual, I would not like to call his name, that is banned from our neighborhood, that was known to be shooting in our neighborhood. I've made several police calls about that is in Mrs. Kitt's home now. Mrs. Kitt, from 7 in the morning to about 2, 3 in the morning, it's like a blowhorn from across the street to the street behind my street to a lady by the name of Renee that she's now pulled a knife on and had Renee removed from the neighborhood. Renee pulled a baseball bat in return. On July, the 12th day, I rented that limousine for my friend, not in September. There were children from the neighborhood, yes, but they weren't Miss Kitt's children. It was Mrs. Kitt that, as I said, excuse me, coming down from my front grass, the kids were all looking, and yes, and I brought my friend outside as a surprise because he'd done a very kind thing for me. And I said, excuse me, please. And she replied with vulgar language, and I was really torn up that I had to be assaulted to do something nice for a friend by this lady across the street. I have, Your Honor, I don't know how else to say, just had about 7 court dates with Miss Kitt.
Just a second. Miss Kitt, would you tell me how many children who live in your home are your biological children?
4 of them are, Your Honor.
I'm confused. 5 or 4?
Well, I count my nephew. I have custody of him. But biologically, 4 of mine live there.
Okay. What other children live in your house?
None other, and no one else, Your Honor.
Have you ever been arrested for drug sales?
No, ma'am.
Other than the arrests that were caused by complaints by Miss Gadsden, have you ever been arrested for anything?
Yes, assault and battery.
When?
2 years this year.
Who was the complainant in that case?
Another young lady.
From the neighborhood?
Yes.
And what was the result of that case?
Dismissed.
Did she allege that you assaulted her?
Yes. Yes,
and
she did.
Did you allege that you were the victim and that she assaulted you?
I said I didn't do it.
You said you just didn't do it?
I didn't do it.
Did you go to trial?
Yes, I did.
And you were acquitted after trial?
Yes.
And that's the only arrest you had anywhere?
Oh, no, ma'am. I have some, like 10 years ago.
For
12
what?
years ago.
What else?
Driving.
Other than driving?
Forgery.
What year?
92.
After 92.
94.
For what?
No, 96 was driving.
Between 92 and 96.
Petty larceny. I don't remember the years, but I know charges.
When was the last time you were incarcerated? Think carefully.
96.
How long?
45 days.
Is that on a plea or a conviction?
Conviction.
Who watched your children?
Their fathers, two of them were in DCS because their fathers were Navy.
Now, Ms. Gatson, I'm going to ask you the same question. Other than instances involving Miss Kitt, have you ever been arrested?
Yes, ma'am.
When was the last time you were arrested?
This was dated on, if maybe the deputy could help me.
No, just tell me. It had nothing to do with Miss Kitt.
Indirectly, yes, ma'am. This was a summons that was for my children's father and I for court, and Miss Kitt thought this was a summons for her and I in court, and I have a witness here that watched her take the summons off my door.
Other than anything having to do with Miss Kitt, have you ever been arrested?
This is a failure to appear.
Listen to me
Yes,
very
ma'am.
carefully, Miss Gatson. Other than any instance that even tangentially involves Miss Kitt, have you ever been arrested?
I don't think so.
Don't give me I don't think so.
In my home, prior to
In your
2000,
home, out of your home, in the theater, in a
Right.
restaurant, in the street, have you ever been arrested?
when
in a
this
car?
individual came to my door, that is,
Just answer yes or no.
yes.
You have been arrested.
The officer accidentally arrested me, and he was the one that had assaulted me.
Okay, fine. Other than that instance, madam,
yes,
other than that instance, prior to 2000, have you ever been arrested?
Prior to 2000,
Yeah.
I was not arrested. I turned myself in after I found that the children's father's girlfriend filed a warrant against me in the city of Chesapeake, a counter warrant, and actually the incident occurred in the city of Norfolk.
I want you ladies to listen to me very, very carefully. Are you involved in a custody dispute now with the father of your children?
No, ma'am. He is not participating in any with what social services has required. I've completed all of those things.
Oh, he's not giving you back the kids so fast.
He doesn't have the children, ma'am.
Where are they?
His mother and sister have the children around the corner from my house. I asked them to get them out of foster care because they were taken from him because he had no place to stay.
Okay, you have an older daughter.
Yes, ma'am.
And two younger ones. You just told me 2 minutes ago that the
Yes,
two
ma'am.
younger children were with their father. Did I hear that right? Did you hear that?
Let her explain.
Okay.
You just told me that they weren't removed, that they weren't in foster care, that they were with their father. I said that the state take your children. You told me no.
No, I apologize.
Please, give me a break. Listen, you two ladies deserve each other. I would suggest the following to you. Listen to me very carefully. If you're going to live next door to each other, I suggest you have nothing to do with each other. Other than that, I don't want to be bothered with you. Goodbye.
These are excused. You may step out.
Envy. There's a lady that's on the porch on a chair all night long.
She never lets up. She let the judicial system keep me down, but it's not going to keep me down.
The young lady wanted a lot of attention.
I just know it'll never be over.
I think I've been getting all the attention in the neighborhood.
I'm a good friend. I would give her a glass of water. She needed it off the street.
I've got limousines, Lexuses, SC Lexuses, all sorts of nice things coming through and nice people coming to visit.
She's a serial neighbor.
Evening gown, dates, tuxedos, and she has nothing.
She spit in my face.
I opened my door, heard her on the porch at the neighbor's house, reached over to check my mail, and someone stepped up and did that.
Something is wrong. Definitely wrong.
I'm moving. You'll never see me again.
She needs a straight jacket.
I'm gone, Miss Kitt.
I'm going to keep praying.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Hall versus Carlton. Step forward, please.
Registered nurse Cynthia Hall is suing artist Della Carlton for the money she paid to have a mural painted. Cynthia says Della did a poor job.
Ms. Hall, you hired the defendant to paint a mural in the nursery, in your baby's nursery.
Yes, Your Honor.
Paid her $200.
Yes.
She painted the mural. You say it was less than quality work. You want your money back.
Yes, Your Honor.
And it says she did a reasonable job, and you're entitled to nothing. How did you find the defendant?
I went to a local baby store called Gore's in Sacramento, and they had a portfolio of her, and she really had a really nice portfolio there. So I was kind of at the end of my pregnancy and really wanted to get someone to do the mural for me right away. So.
And in her portfolio, did it list references?
I didn't see any references.
Did you ask her for references?
No, I didn't.
And she came to your house?
She came to my house.
First you called her on the phone?
Yes.
Did you set a price with her on the phone?
Over the phone, we didn't really set a price. She actually came out, and I kind of discussed with her what I was wanting, but no price was set over the phone.
And so you discussed price when she came out to the house?
Yes.
And she was going to charge you?
Originally, I told her $300 for the labor.
And then?
Then later I realized I hadn't told her that I usually got $30 for supplies. So the total cost, I priced it at $330.
Okay.
And then she told me that she was on a limited budget and that she didn't want to spend any more than $200, including supplies. So I agreed to that, and I came out to her house and did the artwork.
And how long did it take you?
4.5 hours plus.
Okay, can I see the picture of what you did?
Yes, Your Honor. What I have here is her photos. I have the photos from Gore's because she did the bathroom there, a mural in the bathroom at Gore's.
I'm not interested in the photos from Gore's. You made the selection. You selected her as an artist. That's your problem, Miss Hall.
Okay.
And she painted on the wall these little butterflies?
Yes, they're about 6 inches. She stenciled them. I was not expecting those things. I was actually expecting her to give me something more three-dimensional, something that I could actually kind of come to life. I asked for a dragonfly in specific.
Upside down, it looks pretty good to me.
A lot of
She did all these flowers here?
Yes.
Looks lovely.
You can see the eraser marks that kind of still showed through. After it dried, it really, really showed through.
Listen, you didn't pay for a $5,000 Picasso, madam. You paid $200 to spruce up your baby's nursery. It looks like she did an absolutely fine job. Baby fine?
Baby's fine.
Boy or a girl?
Girl.
Looks around at the flowers?
Baby looks around at the flowers.
Very good. If you don't like the flowers, paint over them.
But pencil marks show through.
You paid $200 for this artwork. You got $200 worth of artwork, maybe a little bit more. Stop complaining. Don't muddle up your life with things that are really unimportant. She came to your house twice. She came first to give an estimate. She gave you an estimate of $330. Then you said, I can't spend more than $200. She said, okay, I'll do it for $200. She came out, she did the work. She was there for 4 hours. Certainly she's entitled to be paid for her labor. You paid her for her labor after the work was done. Is that right?
Yes.
Then later you looked at it and you said, I don't like this. I see a pencil mark. I see a smudge. I see an eraser mark.
That's because after it dried, it really showed through. You could see all
I want
the
to tell you something. You certainly can't see that from the pictures. All you see from the pictures is lovely, light artwork. So concentrate on important things, not things that aren't important. The case is dismissed. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out. Your Honor, this is case number 471 on the calendar in the matter of Khalifa versus Dunn. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Ladies, have seats, please.
Miss Khalifa, you had a boyfriend whose name was?
Terrence.
And Terrence left you with a lot of loving memories and a baby.
Correct.
And Miss Dunn,
Yes,
you have Terrence.
kind of, sort of. We're still friends.
So that's why you two ladies don't like each other, because of Terrence. That'd be a
Yes.
fair statement?
Exactly, no.
You mean if it wasn't for Terrence, you would like her?
No,
You wouldn't like her anyway?
at all.
Did you know her before Terrence?
No,
So you met her because of Terrence?
exactly.
So it's all because of Terrence? So the two of you
You're right.
have been feuding, because I have a claim and a counterclaim. Harassment, damage to property, damage to cars, bricks, vandalism, all because of Terrence. So my first question is, where is Terrence?
He doesn't want to be a part of this.
Where is he?
He's at home, at work, maybe.
What kind of work does he do?
He works for an engineering plant.
How old is he?
He's 28.
And for how long were you with Terrence?
I've been with Terrence since 1997 for approximately 7 years.
So you're still with him?
No, ma'am, I'm not.
And how old is your child?
My daughter is 3.
How much child support does Terrence pay you every month?
$400.
You get it regularly?
Yes, ma'am, nonstop.
Love it.
I do too.
So what's your problem with her?
Okay. He was cheating on me with her. She's basically just like a home wrecker.
Just a minute. Asia, I think you got the emphasis on the wrong syllable, darling. It's not her fault.
I'm aware of that.
Not her fault. It's Terrence. And yours. Because before you make a baby with somebody, you get married. That's what people do. They don't have sort of an off and on relationship and then say, well, I expect commitment, but he's not committed. Not committed to you until you make a family. Making a family means getting married and then planning and having a child, having a home. Is that reasonable in that order? Did I do it right this time?
You did it right.
So she's not a home wrecker. You had no home. You only have a home with somebody who you're married to and have a family with.
Exactly, which is why I dismissed him too.
Fine. So it's not her fault. All right. So let's get rid of the name calling. She's not a home wrecker. Terrence is a bum.
Exactly.
Good. Okay. So Terrence the bum was fooling around with her.
Exactly.
And he was probably telling her a whole bunch of stories, like I'm not with her anymore, because he was lying to you, wasn't he, when he was... So it would be a fair statement to say that he was probably lying to her at the same time. So now you can continue.
Okay, February 12th of 2002, Talia came to my home. When she came to my home, she was real irate or whatever. I specifically told her, you have too many kids to be over at my house tripping with him.
What did she come to your house for?
Because apparently Terrence was telling her something that he wasn't with me. So every time she came to do her trap checking, he was there. And it made her upset.
Oh, so Terrence was telling you that he wasn't with her, is that right?
It was the thing with him was what he wanted to leave her, but he knew that she was going to make it hard for him to leave her. So like she did when he finally left.
So what'd you go over there for?
I didn't go over there. There's all these things that I have here, or these false allegations. She is on antidepressants. She's bipolar. She has some problems that she needs to deal with.
All right, so she came over to your house, 21202. She came over to your house, and you said, don't come over to my house. You got too many kids, whatever. Go ahead. Finish.
My kids have to do with that.
So then she comes over to my house, and when I said that, she went across the street from my house, picked up a brick, and proceeded to bust out my windows. When I had the cops and stuff come or whatever, I gave them the description of what she had on down to a T. That is exactly who they went and picked up, which is leading up onto my next issue. She was already arrested on that charge, and that charge she pled guilty to. After she pled guilty to that charge, she's back to my house on Easter Sunday.
Did you plead guilty to throwing a brick through her window?
I did.
Yes or no?
Yes, I was left with a
Yes, you
choice.
did. All right. So then we have no problem with that. So she's financially responsible for that. How much was that to fix?
That was $600.
Good.
She came back over to my house on Easter. Me, my daughter, and Terrence, we were getting ready to go to church. Once again, she screeches up to my house. She hops out. She had on some little black raggedy house coat, some fluffy house shoes in there, a scarf around her head. She started blurting all these cuss words. Again, she went across the street because my neighbor has these rocks going up. She picked up a brick, came across, busted out Terrence's back window in his truck, got the other brick, hurled it at mine, and hopped on top of my truck, scratched it, and then cracked my shield and landed on top of my car.
Was she arrested for that?
She wasn't arrested for that. When she did that, she got back in her car because at the time I was telling him to come outside. At the time he was coming outside to see what was going on. She immediately hopped in her car, rammed my gate swing open like this. She ran her car on the right side of my fence, bending it, came up and ripped my screen off of my
So why didn't you call the police?
Because I was already going to court for this other thing, but that's already pled guilty, and this is something totally different, and I'm handling that.
Why didn't you call the police the second time she came back to the house?
Because I already had called the police on her in the first incident, and I have all my reports, and I was on my way to church, and we were meeting Sunday at church.
Oh, no, I don't believe that. That I don't believe.
Your Honor.
Listen to me carefully. Then I assume you don't want to be compensated for any damage. Well, I'm not going to do that because I don't believe your story. I don't believe that part of your story, that's why you didn't contact the police. She came over, she destroyed your truck, she broke the back of his truck, she pulled your screens off your door, which means she got really close to your house, and for that you don't call the police, but you did call the police when she just picked up a brick and threw it through your window? I don't believe that. Next.
She kept calling my house, saying, calling me out of my name, saying, yeah, your daughter's father is my daughter's father. My name is TT.
You have a child with him too?
No, it was a possibility.
She kept calling my house saying, yeah, your daughter's father is my daughter's father. Yeah, my name is TT Dunn. It don't make me none. Done as in done with. Then she kept calling, saying stuff like, She's going to F me up. She's going to do everything in her best interest to mess us up. Yeah, he's the father, but I have papers to show otherwise that he's not the father.
She thought he was. She went down the menu and she figured out later he wasn't.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
So you want to do the model?
You can't, I don't want you to say anything.
You shut up.
You want to go on a talk show. You made the wrong turn. You keep your mouth shut in my courtroom. Do you understand? You too.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Asia Khalifa claims her ex-boyfriend's friend, Talia Dunn, owes for vandalizing her property. Asia says Talia hurled a brick through her car window.
Anything else, madam?
December 5th, I went to court. When I get out of court, I have a note on my car that says trick or treat in a cuss word with a dead bird on it. The deputy came outside of the Jackson County Courthouse and removed it.
Anything else? That's it? Okay, Miss Dunn.
Well, first of all, this started when I did meet Terrence. As far as my baby, she called me one morning and asked me about him, and I told her, yeah, I had been with him for like the past 6, 7 months, and I didn't know nothing of her. So I left Terrence alone, but I was pregnant when I left him alone. He knew that this was a chance that this might have been his daughter. That's why he never left me alone for the past 2 years. We still was involved or whatever, and we still went on and did our thing. As far as me trying to destroy them, you can't kidnap the willing. He came to me. I didn't come to him. You know, and
just a second. Who cares?
Right, who cares?
Did you go to her house?
No, I did not.
Well, you did go to her house once and threw a brick through throw a brick through her window.
That first time, I had no other choice. I went and I found...
Sure, of course you did. Don't tell me you had no other choice. So you threw a brick through her window. You must have been pretty angry.
No.
You weren't angry?
No.
Okay. Then you went back to her house on Easter?
No, I was at church on Easter, and she's supposed to be Muslim, so why would she even be at church?
So you didn't go to her house on Easter?
No, I did not.
Now, when you went to the courthouse for the restraining order, did you write a note and leave it on her car?
No, I did not. That is not my handwriting. I did not put a note on her car. Okay. And where did the dead bird come from?
Now, what I'd like you to stop playing with your papers, Asia. Sorry. Now, I'd like you to tell me about your counterclaim.
My counterclaim is for her harassment. One night, me and him, we had been out all day, me and my sister, and me, a friend of mine, and him were out, we went shopping. She proceeded to tell him later on that she followed us all day long. So that night, I guess someone, his family, his grandmother or step-grandmother passed or something. We were at home. About 3 o'clock in the morning, the police was called to my house. So they're bamming on the door. I answered the door, and they told me they had a third-party disturbance call saying that it was a disturbance.
You're talking very fast. I'd like you to slow down.
That it was a disturbance. So they saying that this wasn't true. They went ahead, and I told them who might have been doing this. They left. Well, about 6:30 in the morning, we're getting ready to leave. She comes out the dark parking lot down the street. I stayed up the street from a park, and you could see.
I can't understand you. You're talking too fast.
There's a park. It was a park in a parking lot right down the street from my house. You can see right there, she comes out the parking lot 6:30 in the morning, where she had been all night after calling the police. She sat outside my house for like 30 minutes talking to him. I let them talk.
What's next?
I mean, she's done numerous things to me. She's called me, I'm pregnant, I'm going to F you and your stuff
How old are you?
I mean, it's ongoing.
How old are you?
24.
How many children do you have?
I have 4 children.
How old are they?
9, 6, 4, and 1.
Who's the father of the 1-year-old?
Her father is Cortez.
And that's the one that you thought maybe Terrence was the father of?
Well, Terrence thought also.
I'm saying you thought. I don't care what Terrence thinks.
Yeah, I thought it was a possibility.
Is Cortez the father of any other of your children?
No, he's not.
How old are you?
I'm 29.
How many children do you have?
1.
Are you employed?
Yes, ma'am.
What kind of work do you do?
Accounting.
What kind of work do you do?
I'm a student.
A student of what?
Yes, I'm a student. I do apprenticeship for Dwayne Harvey Funeral Home in Kansas City, Missouri.
Who supports your children?
I do. The apprenticeship, they pay me. But it's an apprenticeship.
Listen, ladies, my sense is that each of you has been torturing the other over some worthless piece of protoplasm that we will call Terrence, who conveniently decides that he doesn't want to be part of any lawsuit involving you two women. He's just sitting back and laughing at both of you because you two women are fighting over him, and who knows how many other women are fighting over him. He's stupid enough to fight over him. I'm really sorry he's not here. I would have loved to have met him myself, and I know that Bird was really anxious to meet him. In any event, the damage to your window as a result of the brick incident, do you have a bill for that?
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to see it, please.
All that is together.
Okay.
Side glass, black glass lock, and one key. What did you need a key for?
Because when she broke the window, it jammed to where you couldn't lift my hood up.
Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $440. Listen to me very, very carefully, ladies. You've allowed Terrence to make a fool out of you because you're here exposing the lunacy of fighting with each other over somebody who's totally and completely worthless. Worthless, without value. How are you related to her?
This is my sister.
That you said, sit down.
Okay.
Sit down. Sit
No,
down.
but I want to say something.
You can't say anything.
In honor of
You
my
can't say
sister.
anything. You can't say anything.
She didn't want to throw the bottle.
You can't. I don't want you to say anything.
You shut up.
Shh. Excuse me? Shh.
Your Honor.
Listen to me very carefully. You want to go on a talk show. You made the wrong turn. You keep your mouth shut in my courtroom. Do you understand? Do you understand? You too. I have only one provable claim. That one provable claim is for $440. But if you're going to allow this man to continue to make a fool out of you by doing anything to each other, then you're not as smart as I think you are. You're old. Quiet! You're old enough to make a child. You made 4. You have 1. You have a responsible job. Maybe one day you'll get one. If you continue with this kind of behavior, you are setting a poor example for your children, for your families, and just stop it. Say it's over. He's not worth it.
I would like for her to leave me alone.
Why don't you start listening, receiving, instead of talking?
Your Honor, you haven't listened to nothing that I have.
I listened to you.
The same thing. She's done the same thing.
Listen to me.
I have cracked windshields. I have all that same stuff.
Did she ever police? Just listen to me.
Yes, I do have a police report for that.
I don't care about a police report.
And her stalking and harassing me, sleeping in parks,
Listen to
beating
me.
up and down the street all day long, and I'm supposed to keep letting her do this?
Get over it.
I am over it. She won't get over it because he's not with her.
Miss Dunn, anybody who has 4 children, starting with a 9-year-old, isn't too smart to begin with. And your conduct today just exemplifies to me that you are going to continue to be stupid. You have to be able to say, I made a mistake with this man.
To be done
Or
with.
what? You keep talking. You just keep talking. I made a mistake with this man. I'm not going to have anything to do with this man anymore, and I'm not going to have anything to do with her. You owe her the money because you pled guilty to throwing a brick through her windshield. You are therefore liable. If you can tell me that she pled guilty or was convicted of any crime involving damage to your property, I will hear you. Other than that, I have no interest in hearing any of your complaints. Do you understand?
Yes,
Yeah, no. Did she plead guilty to any crime against you?
She
no.
hasn't been picked up yet.
Good. She did not. Goodbye. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $440.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
If she had her other men and she was kicking it, living it up like I've been doing, this wouldn't hurt her.
I put my man out. I'll let the dogs play with the dogs. It's not about that. I don't want him.
I get up in here and this is what I get. So other words, hey, give us permission to get in the boxing ring.
I don't have to get ghetto or ignorant to prove my point, which I did today.
If it was the end of it, it would have been the end of it when he left her. She wouldn't have came at me with any more stuff after he left.
Basically, it's about class and not trash. I'm basically a diva from 816 popping my collar. Documentation really the nation. Obviously, she knows nothing about. The only thing she knows about is other people's men and wet food stamps.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Kaufman versus Hollett. Step forward, please.
Former bartender Nikki Kaufman is suing her former friend, 24-year-old cook Timothy Hullett, for trashing her car while he was drunk. Timothy says Nikki is also responsible because she was the one who served him the booze.
All right, I'm going to give you the short version of what I gather happened here. I want you to listen carefully, and unless there is any major discrepancy, we're just going to move on. You work in a bar as a bartender. You know the defendant. He must have been a friend of yours because he came to the bar that evening driving your car. He was in the bar all evening. When the bar closed or when they decided to leave, he got into some difficulty. He went outside, got into your car, and trashed your car. I don't care how he trashed your car. He trashed your car. So far, is that correct, Mr. Hullett?
Yes, that's correct.
Mr. Hullett acknowledges that he trashed your car. And he acknowledges he trashed your car because he was drunk. Is that right, sir?
That's correct.
His defense is that you, as the bartender, served him too much liquor. And therefore, it is your fault that he got into the car and trashed it. What do you do for a living?
I'm a cook in a 5-star restaurant.
Why would you want to blame somebody else for your stupidity?
I'm not necessarily blaming anybody, Your Honor. I'm just saying I do take responsibility for the actions that I've done.
Perfect!
I'm just saying, though, also I think that my judgment would have been clearer if I was not that intoxicated.
I absolutely agree with you, Mr. Hullett. So a 24-year-old man who works as a chef in a 5-star restaurant should know when they've had their limit.
Sometimes,
You're
yes,
not
Your
7. What do you mean sometimes?
Sometimes.
There's nothing genetically wrong with you, is there?
Not that I know of.
Can I see the cost of repair for your car, please, Ms. Kaufman? What kind of car do you have?
A 97 Chevy Malibu.
Have any insurance?
Yes, I do.
What kind of deductible do you have?
500.
Mr. Hullett owes you $500. That's your deductible?
Yes.
That's fair, isn't it, Mr. Hullett?
Sounds reasonable.
Sounds reasonable to me, too. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out. That's case number 470 on the calendar in the matter of Hale versus Knighthead.
Thank you, bud.
You're welcome, Judge. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Sir, have a seat, please.
Mr. Hale, you and some friends, and clearly the defendant and his wife, were at a concert, and it is your claim that they assaulted you. You want to be compensated because you were injured. So you want to be compensated for your pain and suffering and for the concert tickets. The defendants indicate that you started this, what turned out to be an altercation, and that it's your fault. So what kind of concert was it?
It was a share concert.
And who did you go with, sir?
I went with Brad and 2 other friends.
Where were you seated?
Probably in the second top tier of the arena, so kind of high up, about mid-arena.
Were you sitting in front of or behind the defendants?
In front of, row down, about 3 feet down below them.
1 row or 2?
Just 1.
So you were seated immediately in front of them?
Directly in front of them.
Is that right?
Down in front.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So now tell me what happened.
We got there probably about 7:15, found a place to park, and on the way to the concert, found just a little place to stop and have a bite to eat, had a beer, and went on to the concert. Got there probably about 8:15, 8:30, got situated in our seats.
So you got there after the show started?
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
We watched the first act, which was Cyndi Lauper. Of course, went to concession.
No, you couldn't have watched the whole first act because you got there an hour late.
We'll watch the rest of the first act. And made a trip or two to the concession.
For what?
In the meantime.
For what?
For a beer or nachos or...
So you had had several beers by that time?
Just a couple, yes, ma'am.
You had several beers before you actually
Yes, ma'am, a
started to
couple.
watch Cher.
Uh-huh.
Now, did you or any member of your group get up to go for refreshments during the act?
Maybe once.
So let me understand this, Mr. Hale. You make the trip in to go to a concert. You decide to arrive late.
Mm-hmm.
You disturbed a whole bunch of people, you and your friends, getting into your seats.
I wouldn't say disturbed.
Sure you
ma'am,
did.
but-
Well, you wouldn't say it because you're a young, foolish man. So after having arrived late and disturbing all the people around you, either you or one of your idiot friends or all of you get up to go again, once or maybe twice, to a concession stand for another beer or nachos. So you disturb everybody again.
Well, we were right on an end row that we could just
Oh,
go
no,
right
you
down the
weren't.
steps.
There were people behind you, sir. And it wouldn't have made any difference to you whether there were people you had to disturb anyway.
That's not true, Your Honor.
Well, you were disturbing people, sir. You kept getting up and getting back in your seats, right?
Well, it was kind of consensus. Everybody, that's kind of how it was going.
I don't understand
Oh, I
what
hear
you're
you.
talking about, sir. Well,
Well-
it's kind of a consensus. What does that mean?
There were other people around us that were up and down, and there were small intermissions between the actual intermission. So, I mean, I didn't feel that we were up, you know, going up and down, disturbing the people behind us.
Well, you were.
Okay?
When people come to a theater late, they're usually rude. They usually just care about themselves and don't give a hoot about anybody else, but sometimes it's unavoidable. So aside from getting up and down during the performance and arriving late, one or both of these people asked you during the course of the performance to sit down.
That's correct.
And they asked you to sit down because they couldn't see. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Now, how many of you and your friends were standing?
There were 4 of us.
How were you all standing?
Yes, ma'am. If I may explain why we were standing, I would like to. There was a whole row of girls in front of us that had tiaras and feather boas, and just everybody was dancing. And we explained to the defendants, as when these people stood, we had to stand as well to see the concert. And we tried to explain to the defendants that, you know, they asked us to sit down. We said, well, if we sit down, you're still not going to be able to see because every row in front of us is standing up. So if we sit down, we can't see, nor will you be able to. You know, so I'm sorry.
Is that what you carefully explained to them?
Yes, ma'am, the first time. Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
And the defendant, he kindly started getting a little rude. And so I returned the favor, and I was just like, sir, we cannot sit down. At that point, they started to get quite belligerent. And next thing I know, Mr. Knight leaned down to the back of my head and said, "You will sit down," in a very, very threatening manner. And so we just decided that was it. Just ignore him, just continue standing, because we couldn't see if we sat down either, and just finish out the concert and just ignore them. Cher was into about our 4th or 5th song, and all of a sudden I felt just a pull at my collar, kind of like the collar I'm wearing now, and then just a fist. I got hit here, pump knots all around my head. I mean, he just went like continuously. My witness saw what was going on.
Don't tell me what he saw.
Okay.
Step up. So, Mr. Knight punched Mr. Hale.
Yes.
Several times.
Several times.
And then what did you see?
I was facing like this, and all of a sudden I heard this commotion and looked over, and he had him by the collar with one hand, beat me with the other.
He was punching him.
Right.
But what was Miss Head doing?
As I was trying to get him off of him, I was kicked or something about this area of me as I turned like that to assist him. And at that point is when we finally got broke away.
Okay.
Your Honor?
Yes.
I'm sorry. They took the lady out in handcuffs. It says in my police report that when the police got up there, that Mrs. Head was striking down at my friend.
So, as far as you know, she didn't touch you?
I don't believe that she touched me. I didn't know,
so
like I said.
Why is she a defendant? Why did you sue her?
Because she was to my back, and I mean, I just was getting hit from back and front. I mean, I didn't know what was going on.
Okay.
I had no idea what was going on behind me.
Now, Mr. Knight.
Yes, ma'am.
Now I'll hear you.
Well, as you said, we went to the
You went to the concert. They were seated in front of you, and they were standing up.
That's correct.
Go ahead. Anybody else standing up?
No, ma'am.
Nobody?
No, ma'am.
No, Mr. Knight. Mr. Knight, that's not true. Just because I was on his case, I don't want you to think you have a friend in me. When you go to a Cher concert and everybody's doing their thing, there are a lot of people standing up. So don't tell me that there weren't other people standing up.
I saw no one standing in front of him when they were there, except for them standing up. And I did ask him to sit down.
And you punched him?
I punched him after he pushed me, yes, ma'am.
Several times.
No.
There was no pushing.
Mr. Knight, you punched him. He didn't assault you first. You got frustrated because he was ignoring you.
No, ma'am.
Tell me how he pushed you, sir. He's sitting in front of you, his back is towards you, and he's had a few beers, so he is feeling pretty good.
Yes, ma'am.
You tell him you will sit down.
No, ma'am.
No.
Yes,
I asked him if he would sit down so that the people behind him could see.
Right. No, you did that the first time.
Yes, ma'am. And
And
he
probably
told
the
me at that point that he bought his effing ticket and he would do what he wanted to.
Probably close.
About the third time.
Quiet. Go ahead.
Then I leaned forward. I did not touch him whatsoever. I said, buddy, if you'll look around, there's no one else standing.
That's not true.
I don't want to hear you.
It's ridiculous.
I don't want to hear you.
Sorry.
You are rude.
Okay.
Go ahead.
And at that point, he turned around and looked at me and pushed me in my chest and said, F you. I caught myself at the back of the seat. When I turned back and looked at him, I don't know his intoxicated state or what, but it looked aggressive like he was going to hit me.
I'm sorry, Your Honor.
And so when I stood back up, I did punch him, yes, ma'am. And I punched him several times. A young lady that was with him was trying to attack Debbie. I was in between them. There was no other altercations. He went and got security while I stood there between the lady that was with him and Debbie. Security came. They did escort us out. We were issued a citation for disorderly conduct. They were allowed to go back inside to the concert. I guess we missed the last 3 songs that Cher sang. We went to our car and went home. As far as I was concerned,
The evening was a bust.
yes, ma'am.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment. And later today,
When we were dating, it was long-term, and I wanted her to move down with me, and she also wanted to live down there with me as well. And when she moved down, everything was fine until people found out on campus.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Student Charles Hale says Terry Knight assaulted him at a Cher concert. Terry says Charles was blocking his view.
I'd like to see the police reports, please.
Would you like pictures too, or?
Yeah, sure. I want to see them.
Thank you. And of course, it didn't get the pump knots on my head because they were not able to be pictured, but as you know, he did hit me 3 or 4 times.
I'm reading the police report here. The victim, that's you,
Yes, ma'am.
was somewhat intoxicated.
Which I told you I'd had a few, yes.
Shouldn't have gone drunk to a concert.
We weren't drunk, ma'am.
Sure you were.
No, we weren't.
Listen, a police officer is used to filing things that are very specific, says you're intoxicated. Intoxicated means drunk. Just a nice way. It's longer. But intoxicated is drunk.
I beg to differ. I'm sorry.
You can differ all you like, sir. Give me the definition of intoxicated.
She probably smelled alcohol in the breath, and I was
No.
visibly upset. And
No.
But I wasn't stumbling or mumbling or...
How do you know?
I was pretty well on my wits after being
Really?
beat.
Okay, it's not what the officer said. The officer says intoxicated.
I don't feel that deserved a...
Absolutely not. You are absolutely right. Just because you're intoxicated and acting stupid does not give him license to put his hands on you. You're absolutely right.
He put his hands on me first.
I don't believe that.
Okay.
No, Mr. Knight, I don't believe that. I believe that you were real frustrated with his behavior, and I believe he opened up a big fresh mouth to you. I do believe all of those things, but I do not believe that you had any cause to put your hands on him. Now, you were not injured. You had your neck scratched, and you had no right to do that. I want you to tell me what you believe is fair compensation for that.
It's even...
I want just to give me a figure. I want you to tell me what you believe is fair compensation for that.
I believe $1,500 for... Because with the scratch on the neck and the bruise on the neck, which are evident there were pump knots on my head. I missed the whole rest of that week of school because of headaches from just... And the whole last of the concert, the whole last of Cher, who we had gone to see, was spent down in the bottom half of the arena giving
Well, you missed the
statements.
first half of the concert. You missed the first part of the concert. You missed the second part of the concert, sir. First part you did on your own volition. Second part you did because you were acting like a fool. I think $1,500 is excessive. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $500. That's all. Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I didn't see anybody with pom-poms and all this stand up.
He evidently needs his glasses fixed because everybody around us was standing up dancing. It was a concert.
But, you know, I hadn't been drinking.
And it wasn't Metallica. Did not merit his beating.
And now the next case.
All parties are Fajardo versus Bogert. Step forward, please.
22-year-old student Sonia Fajardo is suing her ex-girlfriend, 28-year-old student Christina Bogert, for unpaid loans to get back on her feet. Christina says they were in love and the money was never a loan.
Ms. Fajardo, it is your claim that the defendant owes you some money as a result of a loan. And this loan was made to the defendant while you were dating. Tell me about the loan.
Well, when we first started dating, I was in Orlando, and I moved down to Miami to start school. And when we were dating, it was long-term, and I wanted her to move down with me, and she also wanted to live down there with me as well. She did have lots of bills that after September 11th, as a server, you know, you don't make that much money when people don't go out to eat.
You were working in a restaurant?
Yes, ma'am. Yes. So the plan was that she would move in with me. She was living in my dorm room. She didn't have to pay for rent, utilities, anything like that. No food, because we had the cafeteria. I mean, no bills, and she could save the money, pay me back, and pay the rest of her bills. And when she moved down, everything was fine until people found out on campus. And obviously, that's against the rules, so it was either she move out or...
You mean against the rules for her to live in the dorm room
Yes.
and eat in the cafeteria as a non-student?
Yes.
So, I mean, that's logical. People pay a lot of money for that.
Yeah, and since we were sort of desperate, my friend was renting a room, and when she moved down there, she was still not making enough. So she was changing jobs.
She wasn't making enough to pay for what? She didn't have any expenses.
Well, she has a car payment and credit cards that she had to pay, and she wasn't able to pay it, and she needed to borrow some more money so that she could live in my friend's apartment. But I only had $200 at the time, so I lent her $200 and then the rest later. But throughout this whole time, she always would say, you know, I'm going to put that money back in your account.
You didn't talk in terms of repayment. It's later on that she said, I want to repay you.
Yes.
So the original money that you laid out for her was not a loan. It was, come down here, because we can be together. That's what you're telling me. It was she who then said at some point, as soon as I get on my feet, I'll put this money back in your account. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Well, that's not a loan. Because she says there was never a loan.
But she also asked me, though. I mean, it wasn't just an offer. She asked me, and I said, okay.
You said okay.
To lend her the money.
Even if you said you'll pay me back when you can, that's a possibility, right?
Possible, yes.
Right? If you have that kind of need to be with each other, then you don't start talking about these financial arrangements when you're going to start paying me back on the 1st of September, $50, and every 15th and the 1st of the month thereafter. You didn't have that conversation. That's what a loan is. At least if you make a loan and this is what you owe. This is how you're going to pay it back. This is when you're going to pay it back. That's a contract. It's not a contract, Ms. Fajardo, when you say, here's the money, pay me back when you can.
It wasn't when you can, it was when she moved down, she was supposed to pay me back, and she never paid me back. That was a plan for her to pay me back.
Okay. Now, was that your plan?
No, as far as I'm concerned, it wasn't a
Not
loan
as far
at
as
all.
you're concerned.
Oh.
Was that your plan, is what I asked you, Ms. Bogart, to pay her back? She's the student, you're the worker.
I paid for everyday incidentals. I mean, I was making cash daily as a server. So we'd go out to eat, we'd go out entertainment at night and everything like that, and I paid for that. When it came to paying for bills that needed, you know, signing off on a check, I didn't have a checking account. So that's where she came in, and she made out the actual checks. I, on the other hand, paid for, you know, daily expenses. It was a mutual agreement. We were in a relationship. She paid for things, I paid for things. It was never
How
loan.
long did you stay in her dorm room?
I'm not sure, a couple months? I'm not exactly sure.
About a month and a half.
And how many times did you take her out to dinner?
Enough. More than 10 times, less than 100.
We went out to dinner once, and I put it on my credit card to actual dinner. The rest was going to maybe Taco Bell or Burger King.
That's still dinner.
What money did you advance her, Ms. Fajardo?
I advanced her $500.
For what?
Her car payment.
$500. What else?
There was a speeding ticket that she had gotten for $147.
Go ahead, what else?
With the citation.
What else?
And then rent.
What rent?
For the
$200?
$200 and then $250.
She also lived in that apartment with me.
I lived in my dorm room. I never gave up my dorm room.
I don't care whether you gave up the dorm, but did you ever sleep in another apartment that she was living in?
Yes.
Forget it.
But I was not living there. I lived on campus the whole time.
All of this was gifts to you by someone who was sort of smitten, and there was never an agreement or an understanding that when you could, you would start paying her back. That's what you want me to
Well, it was a
believe.
relationship. I mean, we did things for each other. I mean, it wasn't like a business.
So far, I haven't heard anything that you did for her. Only that she did for you, financially. I'm talking about only financially.
Well, just because she has the documentation for it, because she had the checking account. I, on the other hand, because I was a server, only had cash. I don't have any...
That's a very, very smart thing. A server should have a bank account. She has the documentation because she provided the money. And it is my belief that you are responsible to repay her this money, even though she did it in sort of a sloppy way. I believe it was the intention of both parties at the time that she advanced this money for you to begin to pay it back at some point. You seem to think you don't have that obligation. I believe you do. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,294. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may this is case number 439 on the calendar in the matter of Elite Limousine versus Armstrong. Parties have been sworn in, Your Honor. You may be seated. Folks, have seats.
Who's going to speak on behalf of Elite Limousine?
I will.
Good. Tell me your name.
I'm Deborah Williams.
Well, it's an interesting case. You provided limousine service for the defendant's wedding. Picked up the defendant and I assume the wedding party at the church and took them to where they had to go. Your bill for the evening was $795, something like that.
Yes,
Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
The defendant refuses to pay. The defendant says that it was very nice of you to send the limousine. She never hired you. Correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. When were you married?
October 26th.
Where?
At Zor United Methodist Church in Greer, South Carolina.
How big is this town in Carolina?
It's not a very big town.
How many churches are there?
Probably 30.
Was this on a Sunday?
It was a Saturday.
Is it your experience that all 30 churches, or most of them, have weddings on Saturdays?
Usually, yes, ma'am.
Booked a lot in advance, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you want to try to explain to me your theory of how they arrived at your church to pick you up at your wedding on the 26th of October, just at the time that you and your wedding party were leaving the church. Explain that to me.
Well, it started about a month and a half prior to my wedding. I was calling around numerous places to get prices on limos. I contacted Elite Limousine at the time of contact over the telephone. I spoke with a lady and I told her I needed a limousine for my wedding. She asked me to give her the specifics, where the church was, what time my wedding was, how long I would need the limo and so forth, and that she would put the man on the phone with me that would take the information down for me.
Go ahead.
Okay, once he got on the phone, I gave him the specifics as far as date, where the wedding was going to be held, the times I needed the service, and at that time he told me that it would be $795 and that it required a $150 deposit. I told him at that time on the phone that I was not prepared to pay the deposit because I'd like to speak with my fiance. He told me that would be fine. What he would do is keep the information I'd given him, and I had until 5 o'clock that day to call him back with a $150 deposit, and if I did not call back, it would cancel out and the reservation would not be held up. So I spoke with my husband. We decided not to do it, and because he told me I didn't have to call back, if I didn't pay the deposit, it would cancel, I never called back. The day of my wedding, I walk out of the church, and there's a limo there.
No, now stop a second. That's how they got to your wedding, according to you.
Yes, ma'am.
How many people were in your wedding party that ultimately used the limousine?
There were 3 bridesmaids, 3 groomsmen, 2 flower girls, a ring bearer, and my husband and I, and 2 ushers.
How did you all get to the church?
We drove our own personal vehicles, and prior to the wedding, we had all decided that we would follow each other to the reception. That was our intentions after the wedding, to carpool to the reception.
So you gave up the idea of hiring a limousine?
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
So after my wedding, we walk out of the church. The limo's there. Everybody's amazed, and I've got a videotape showing the actual footage where we're walking out of the church. As we walked up to the limo driver had the door open, and he was standing there, and I said, "What is the limo for?" And he said, "Are you Sherry Armstrong?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And he said, "If you're Sherry Armstrong, this limo's for you." And I said, "Wait a minute." I said, I don't understand. I didn't rent a limo. He says, "If you're Sherry Armstrong, it's paid in full, everything's taken care of." Okay. So we got in the limo.
Got in and you went. And that's how it happened. So you thought it was a gift from somebody. Now I'll hear your side, Miss Williams.
Well, I think it was late evening in August. Miss Armstrong called. When I answer the phone, I always give people rates of each vehicle that we have.
Well, she says that nobody gave her the rates.
First thing we do anytime we answer the phone.
Do you remember her call specifically?
I do.
Well, then I want you to tell me her call specifically, if you remember.
I do. My husband took her call.
Okay, then if this is your husband, so let me hear you.
Yes, ma'am, I did. She called, and she was a very nice lady, and she had some unusual requests. She told me that she was on a budget. We understand that. She initially booked a Navigator. We have a Navigator SUV Super Stretch. So I told her to help her out. I would do what we call a split run, which we don't normally do, but the Greer, the church that she was at, is a well-known church in our community. Our shop is also located in Greer. So usually...
Don't tell me usually.
Okay.
She says, and it sounds logical to me, that if you were going to hold this date of October 26th, that would have required a deposit. What she says has a ring of truth to it, that she was told that you'll hold the date for her till the end of the day, then you're going to need a deposit to hold the date permanently and to show up at the wedding.
No, ma'am. She told me she would like to book the vehicle. A deposit is customary, but it's not something we do all the time. Yes, ma'am. And the reason I waived the deposit in this case is she said she didn't have a credit card. She would pay cash the day of the service. She did book the car. She gave me the information where to pick her up at the church. She said she was going to the City Club, from the City Club wherever, which was after their, their reception. And the reason I gave her a flat rate is because we did do a split, and she wanted to be picked up back at 4 o'clock from 4 to 8. The reason I waived the deposit is because I did have all her information, and I had her work phone number, and I had the church. So I had no reason to believe that it was a call that would be somebody, playing a joke or anything.
I'd like to see the contract that you say she signed.
This is the contract. That was the total amount, and I'll explain that to Judge.
I just want to see her signature and tell me when you sent her the contract. Well, this was signed on the day of the wedding.
Yes, ma'am. We send the contract with the drivers unless they request it in advance, and then we faxed it to them. but since it was not requested, we always send it's considered a trip sheet. Each driver has that with them.
Tell me about this contract.
Okay. That contract was explained to me as a damage waiver. 5 hours into I'd already been to my reception. The limo picked me up at 4 o'clock, like he was supposed to. At 4 o'clock, we went to the church. We cleaned the church up. We left the church, and we were at a gas station 5 hours into the reception. The limo driver comes up to me. That was on a clipboard. He said, "Miss Armstrong, I apologize. I'm a new employee." He said, "This should have been signed prior to you getting in the limo at the church." He said, "All this is a damage waiver stating that if you have broken glass, any damages to the limo, you will be responsible for it." And I said, "That's all it is?" He goes, "Yes, yes, ma'am, it is." And then he made a joke, and he says, "Your first official signature is Mrs. Armstrong."
Well,
I signed it, he walked away, and that was it.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You and your husband got in the car, 1, 2, 3, snap, snap, snap. If you think that's a gift, you come out of the church, you stop, you say, "My God, what is this? My goodness gracious me, where did this come from?"
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Deborah and Gregory Williams claim they've yet to be paid for a limousine rented for Sherry Armstrong's wedding. Sherry denies ordering the limo.
Okay, Mr. Williams. You have your driver here?
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to see your driver.
I'm Gene Thompson, Your Honor.
Did you make a mistake, Mr. Thompson, that day?
No, ma'am.
Mr. Williams, did you make a mistake, sir?
No, ma'am.
I'm not so sure. I mean, I've dealt with limousine services before, and it's not usually handled this way.
Well, it's a judgment call as far as waiving the deposit.
It's not a judgment call, Mr. Williams. It's business. If you told me that you knew this lady, that she came as a reference, that she came through a relative, that you knew her at all, and you decided that you were going to waive the deposit and hold the date anyway, maybe I could understand that. But someone who's calling you from the yellow pages that you don't know from a hole in the wall, you don't waive the deposit and hold that date and hold your Suburban. What if somebody else calls you and then she decides at the last minute that she's not going to use your service?
Ms. Williams can answer that. She did call back and she reconfirmed the date.
Oh, really?
Yes,
Tell me about that.
About a week prior to the event, I got a call. I would assume it was Miss Armstrong. She did not say she was. She was calling to check to be sure that her limo was confirmed. And she spoke about the number of people that would be in there. I said the limit in the Navigator is 15 people. She asked if more people could get in there. I said, "No, ma'am, that's the capacity. We have a larger vehicle."
I never called back. I did ask them about the capacity, the first call I made about a month and a half prior to my wedding. I never called them, nor did I go down there or pay any type of deposit.
I didn't ask you about going down there, paying any kind of deposit. I asked you about a telephone call.
I called one time, and it's a month and a half prior to my wedding, and that's it.
How many other limousine companies did you call?
Probably, I would say at least 8.
Who was the cheapest?
They were, actually.
Then what changed your mind about having a limousine pick you up at the wedding?
My fiance and I talked about it, and we just decided for $800 it just wasn't worth it, so we decided not to do it. And
I'd like to see your video.
Okay. This is right after our pictures were taken in the church. We were coming out.
I'm watching you. Whose car is the black car? Is the dark car right over there?
The black car there, I'm not sure. That must be a guest.
And it was as you were coming out there that you saw the limousine?
Yes, ma'am.
I don't believe you. I don't believe you. I have to make a judgment. They say that you called and reserved this limousine. You say you did not. You thought it was a gift. That is not what happens when you think that that's a gift. If you think that's a gift, what you say is you stop. You come out of the church, you stop, you say, "My God, what is this?" You turn around to the person driving the car and you say, "My goodness gracious," put your hand down, "My goodness gracious me, where did this come from? I didn't order this. This must be some mistake." You and your husband got in the car, 1, 2, 3, snap, 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 took a picture. I didn't see anything that says, where did this come from? This must be some gift. $795 judgment for the plaintiff. Goodbye.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
They made the reservations. They knew it wasn't paid for.
I never signed a contract.
She said she'd take care of everything at the end of the evening. At the end of the evening, they were very intoxicated.
The limo driver told us repeatedly that it was paid for.
They were getting unruly.
I just feel like I'm not responsible.
I told them to go ahead and just let them out. I would handle it in the morning.
We assumed, which we shouldn't have, that the limo had been taken care of by a family member or someone else in the party.
They had 3 hours before the reception, before the driver came back to find out who had rented the limousine.
We had no idea.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Little versus Whitlock Whitehead. Step forward, please.
19-year-old student Crystal Biddle and her mother Gail are suing schoolteacher Darlene Whitlock and her brother, 25-year-old student Dale Whitehead, for the value of a totaled car.
What's your first name?
Crystal.
Crystal. Is this your mom?
Yes.
And yours?
Darlene.
I'm Dale.
According to your complaint, you had cars in school. You were in school, and you were in school. Is that right?
Correct.
And you had one car, you had another car, your cars were parked next to each other in a parking lot. Is that right?
Yes.
Your car, without any indication of any fault on your part, you weren't even there, caught fire and was destroyed.
Correct.
Your car was next to his car and was also destroyed.
Yes.
You want them, you're the owner of the car,
Yes, ma'am.
to pay the cost of a new car or a replacement car.
Yes.
Tell me why.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy.
Go ahead.
Well, I should not be tormented for somebody's car who had electrical problems shoot into my car and start on fire. It's not fair to me.
How do we know that the car had electrical problems?
In the report it says...
Can I see the
yes.
report, please? Let's see what it says. So there are several cars involved in this, and it's clear that, according to the fire report, it says the Ford van was the vehicle that the fire started in the electrical wiring.
Yes.
So why don't you sue Ford? What are you suing him for?
He's the one who owned the car.
Would it be my fault?
Why didn't you have insurance on your car?
I had liability insurance.
Yeah, but you don't have collision, you don't have damage.
That's just...
This is, look, I'm trying to think of an example to give you that would probably make it more palatable to you. When there is a fault, you target the person who's at fault, person or entity that's at fault, if they cause you injury or damage, right?
Yes.
He was not at fault. He didn't create this car. There is no indication that he was aware or the owner of the car was aware that there were electrical problems with the car. So certainly they're not at fault. Now, are they absolutely liable for anything that happens as a result of their car? No. Not at all. What happens if they're driving along the street and a boulder hits their car and their car swerves and hits into your car? Certainly not their fault, because they didn't do anything that was negligent. So what you have to do is you have to have collision if you want to be fully protected, or else go after the people who made the car. If there was faulty electrical wiring, isn't that what you were told?
No.
Well, what were you told?
We were just told to file a claim against the owner and the driver of the vehicle.
For what?
Well, the vehicle was smashed in the front end of the vehicle, and the insurance company that he had didn't even send anyone out to look at their car to see if there was any evidence of any
This
problem.
is the fire department report. Fire department report says that it was an electrical fire.
Right. Well, what we were saying is that we believe that there probably were problems with the van that they were aware of.
Show me. Just a minute. Then if what you're saying to me, Ms. Biddle, is accurate, that they had knowledge that there was something wrong with their car, and yet drove it, and thereby placed other cars at risk, then they would be responsible. I agree with you. Show me, give me proof, that they knew or should have known that there was something wrong with their car that could cause a fire, and then you get whatever you want. Do you have any proof?
If anybody would have walked past that van, anybody would have known that there was problems with that van. It was rusted up, it was very old, and it didn't like it was taken care of very well. So,
that doesn't mean, listen to me, Miss Biddle, that means that the car will one day be driving along the road and stop running. That doesn't mean that it's going to explode in a fire. Ms. Biddle, you need proof, expert proof, that, for instance, the car was in an accident. They were advised by a mechanic that unless it was fixed, the car could, by spontaneous combustion, start on fire. Because otherwise, there are lots of scenarios that are possible. It's also possible that somebody lit a match, opened the hood, threw it in the car, and caught on an electrical wire, and that's what they saw. They saw the electrical wires burned, that somebody else did that. Do you think that they would be responsible if somebody passed their car and, as a prank, took a match and threw it in the gas tank and the car exploded and your car was damaged? Do you think they'd be responsible?
No.
Why? Just a minute. Why not?
Well, I mean, it was somebody else could have, you know, done it just to get him in trouble, but...
Someone else could have done something to destroy his car. It's not different. It's not different. You have to show a fault, that somehow these people knew that they were driving around in a dangerous vehicle that could cause damage to somebody else's property. And you don't have that proof, so you have no case. So next time you want to be fully protected, get collision. Case dismissed. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out. This is case number 456 on the calendar in the matter of Wells versus Howells. Parties have been sworn in. Judge, you may be seated. Ladies, have seats, please.
Mr. Wells, according to what I've read, sir, you and the defendant had a glorious 11-year relationship. Sometimes on, sometimes off. Now it's off. It's over. But about 2 years ago, when it was over, it is your claim that Miss Howells, while you were incarcerated on some kind of domestic dispute, she stole all of your personal property. So that's the first part of your lawsuit, that you want your personal property from 2 years ago.
Yes.
Then, more recently, in 2002, you got back together again. And you claim that you proposed marriage, and you gave her a ring. And then a month or so later, the relationship ended for good, so you want the ring back.
Yes.
Miss Howells says that she deserves the ring. She doesn't even address the stuff, but she says she deserves the ring after 11 years of being with you. And she's counterclaiming because she says in November, which is the date of the final breakup, that you assaulted her, and she wants to be compensated for her pain and suffering, whatever medical bill she has. So I'm not going to get into what you say Miss Howells took 2 years ago, and I'm going to tell you why, sir. Have you been incarcerated for the last 2 years?
No.
Then would you like to tell me why you did not pursue this matter for 2 years?
Well, Your Honor.
I know who I am, so just tell me why.
The reason why is because we have been together and on and off so many times that I've lost count, and these things that I want are things that I bought with my own money. I've paid Ms. Howells numerous amounts of cash and dining and trips to Mexico, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and I've been slapped in the face, and I'd like to have my things back.
Well, you should have been more vigilant, Mr. Wells. Courts are set up to deal with divorces. They're not set up to deal with almost marrieds, almost togethers, 11-year relationships that don't pan out. You had 2 years in which to act, you didn't. But I'm going to get to the ring for a second. Where's the ring, Miss Howells?
The ring I returned to Costco in Medford, Oregon, and gave them a picture of the attack of my right arm, and they returned the money to me.
How much money did they return?
$1,099.
That's what you owe him, $1,099. Is that what you paid for the ring, Mr. Wells?
Yes.
An engagement ring is given in anticipation of getting married. You didn't get married, you don't keep the ring or the value thereof because you returned the ring. You don't keep the cash because you feel as if you deserve it. You don't. If you're foolish enough to live with somebody who abuses you and who makes your life miserable, that's your problem. You don't get to keep the ring. So you get $1,099, sir, on your complaint.
Okay.
Now we're going to get to your counterclaim. I want you to tell me what happened in November when you claimed that Mr. Wells assaulted you.
Okay, Mr. Wells and I, being he was having some behavior problems, I was going to drive us to a Christian marriage counseling. It was a 2-day seminar. We tried to find the place where it was going to take place and could not find it. So we decided to just go to dinner and, you know, and forget about it. So we went to dinner, had a couple drinks, and then on the way home, we stopped at this nightclub. It's a steakhouse nightclub. He started verbally accusing me things of looking at some guy in the bar and things like that, starting a fight. And I was having a good time. And anyway, so we get to my home, and you know, it escalated. So we get out of the car, go in the house, and he all of a sudden just turned into a totally different person and told me that, called me some names, and then he told me he was going to kick that TV in, the big screen TV, and he was going to slap me in my face, and he was going to walk out the door and get a taxi and go home. Well, he didn't have any money. So he grabbed my phone and proceeded out the door with it. I said, give me my phone back. Anyway, he slammed it down on the cement. I said, Scott, calm down. He came back inside my home, and he just was out of control. I said, I will give you the money to take a taxi, you know, if that's your big, you know, thing. I go, why can't you just get along with me and we can just, you know, work this out? You know, why do you have to be like this? And anyway, he grabbed my purse at one time, ran to the door, and then I ran after him and got my purse away because I had some money in it. We kind of backed up. I kind of backed to my kitchen counter, and I just, something in my heart told me I just better make it to the door and scream because of the way he was carrying on and going out of his mind. And anyway, so I ran to the door, got the door open. I opened the door with my right hand, and he immediately, and I got to scream out for help, and he immediately grabbed my right arm, it's really hard, and he covered up my mouth, dragged me to my office. It's a second bedroom I use for my office. He dragged me in there and told me the police are going to come, oh, you know, and how much he loved me, and he just carried on, you know, please, you know, tell him I left, you know, because actually when he grabbed me on my arm and grabbed me around my face, I thought he was going to kill me.
Okay, so he grabbed you by the arm,
yeah.
put his hands across your mouth and said, please don't scream because the police are going to come.
Yes.
Tell them I'm not here.
Okay.
Let's go.
Okay, so then the police came, and anyway, he hid in my closet, and they pulled him out of the closet, but he had put something in one of my shoes.
What did he put in one of your shoes?
I have the police report, Your Honor.
What did he put in your shoe?
Meth, drugs.
Drugs. So who was arrested?
He was arrested.
What about
I didn't press charges.
What about you?
No, I went in and did a urinalysis in my bathroom. They gave me the cup, and I'm clean. You know,
What about him?
No, they took him to jail.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I'm not a drug user.
So this was an isolated instance?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, right.
And later today,
Your Honor, she knew I was going in the hallway.
That doesn't mean anything if she knew you were going in the hallway, Miss Davis.
Yes, Your Honor. This is how it was.
No, it wasn't. Stop making it up as you're going along.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Charles Scott Wells says ex-fiancée Linda Howells owes for the return of property and an engagement ring. Linda says he bought the ring at Costco and she returned it.
All right, Mr. Wells, let's hear your version of the events of the 3rd of November, 2002.
Well, I call this the abuse of the legal system, and here's why. Ms. Howells had made a statement to her neighbor, if I'm murdered, then it's my boyfriend who did it. Well, that was early in the afternoon. Ms. Howells picks me up that evening, takes me out to dinner, takes me back to her house, goes outside, screams help, I get arrested. That's the short version of it. I mean, that's just one incident. And I've got proof right here.
I'd like to see it.
Also, Ms. Howells is sue crazy. She's got 7 lawsuits going. Here's one that's just recent, a whiplash case. That,
Shh, I'm not interested in a whiplash case. Let me see proof, sir.
This from here on the second page.
Why were you hiding in the closet?
The reason I was hiding in the closet is because of an incident that happened 2 years ago that was similar to this, where she had called the police, had me arrested, said that I had threatened her. I went to jail, and that's when I lost my belongings out of my house. The
So
reason
is that
I
why
was
you
in
were
the
hiding?
closet
What
is
about the drugs?
The drugs, I don't do drugs now as isolated incidents.
Just a second. What were the drugs doing in her shoe?
I had put them there.
Why?
Because when Miss Howells opened the door for the police, she said, he's hiding in the closet.
Well, what were you doing walking around with the drugs?
I was on my way.
Methamphetamine. What were you doing walking around with?
It was a foolish mistake, Your Honor. I mean, it was something I am very embarrassed about.
What did you plan to do with it, sir?
Pardon?
I mean, we're going to frame it.
I was going to snort it.
Had you snorted any of it before?
In the past?
Yes.
No, I'm not a drug user. It's
So this was an isolated instance?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, right. Were you given a urine test when you got to the precinct?
Yes.
Is it negative or positive?
I'm not sure what the results were.
Really? All right. Let me see your injuries, please.
Okay. And here's a copy of the police report, what happened. And then there's that on my arm. And then the incident of, it was actually a year prior, November 23rd, 2001.
I'm not interested in what happened the year before. I'm not interested in his property that happened the year before. I'm not interested.
Okay.
Oh, this is a bad bruise.
Very bad. And I had a 5-hour shoulder surgery in 1997 on my shoulder.
Oh, please, I'm not interested in the year of the flood, madam.
In Your Honor,
Well,
there was no...
No, Your Honor, it caused me paralysis, his grabbing me.
Okay, right now you look just fine, but he gave you a nasty bruise.
There was no report of that when the incident happened with the police. This is all
I didn't
fabricated.
press charges. I tried to protect you.
You admitted to the police, sir, that you last snorted the meth earlier that evening.
Yes, I did. Your Honor, I went down the wrong path there. And
fine, well then what you did, sir, you went down the wrong path, and what happened is...
But the drugs have not...
No, listen to me. You went down the wrong path, sir, and what happened when you go down the wrong path and you snort drugs earlier in the evening, your behavior changes.
Mm-hmm.
Even your memory of events change. Because what you told me happened was that she set you up that night.
She did.
That she came to take you to dinner, and she drove you home to her house, and then she ran outside and screamed for the police so that she could have you arrested. If that's really what you think, I feel sorry for you. If that's what you want me to believe, I feel sorry for me, because it's not what happened, sir.
Well, Your Honor,
what happened is you got into an argument with her. You were behaving irrationally. You were a little bit sweaty. I don't know what your circumstance is as we stand here today, and I'm certainly not going to ask you, but I will tell you that night you were acting a little bit irrationally. She went outside and screamed for somebody to call the police. And you got busted, and you got busted for either a disturbance at her home and or the drug possession. You probably pled guilty to the drug possession. Is that a fair statement?
Well, Miss Howells was arrested for marijuana that evening.
Did you?
She was partying with me.
Did you plead guilty to the drug possession?
Yes, I did.
So that's over.
Yeah.
So that part is...
I haven't tried
that part is over with. As part of what happened in the course of that evening, sir, you bruised her very badly. Because you didn't want to get... Oh, yeah, you did.
That picture could be from anything. If she was injured, wouldn't she have told the police that night when I was arrested?
A black and blue mark like that doesn't come out 2 seconds later. It comes out, that's what happened. You grabbed her inside. You mean you didn't punch her? She didn't say, he punched me, he kicked me in the back, he threatened to stab me. He said you grabbed her by the arm, which you did, in order to take her inside to shut her up. You were acting irrationally. I don't think that she was seriously injured that night. I don't believe that. But I believe she was injured sufficiently enough to cost you $1,099, which is the cost of the engagement ring. So your claim is dismissed, as is your counterclaim. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I feel like this is a defeat for men that have women abusing the legal system to get material things from men.
He makes up stories, and he actually believes them.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Davis versus Wallace. Step forward, please.
26-year-old homemaker Shoshana Davis and her son, 7-year-old Raleek Wilkes, are suing her aunt, airport security screener Yvette Wallace, for causing her son's finger to be severed.
Miss Davis, Miss Wallace is your aunt, is that right?
Yes.
And this is your son?
Yes.
He's 7?
Yes.
And what's your first name?
Raleek.
Raleek?
Yes.
Miss Wallace, this is your daughter?
Yes.
You like him? Yes. Is that right? You play together occasionally? According to your complaint, Miss Davis, you were at your aunt's house, socializing?
Yes.
Sitting in the kitchen, having a cup of coffee?
Yes.
And the kids were playing?
Yes.
And at some point, this young lady went into the bathroom?
Yes.
According to you, she slammed Raleek's finger in the door, causing the tip of his finger to come off?
Yes.
And then you took him to the hospital, and they had to find the tip of the finger, and you say Miss Wallace didn't get the tip of the finger there fast enough. To make a long story short, Raleek is missing a little piece of his finger. And you want your aunt to pay for all of his medical bills And for pain and suffering, you want her to pay you $5,000, right?
Yes.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy.
You're sitting with your aunt in the kitchen, having a cup of coffee. What happens? Was he in the kitchen with you and followed her into the bathroom?
No, he wasn't. They was playing in Christina's bedroom.
Right.
Christina runs into the bathroom after hitting Ralik. And
She hit him?
Yes.
Where did she hit him?
On my leg.
You mean she hit you because she was angry with you?
No.
Was she playing around? Huh?
Yes.
Sure she was. And then she went into the bathroom. What did you do, Ralik?
I ran after her.
Right. And she slammed the door?
Yes.
And you got your finger caught in the door?
Yes.
So? That's what happened.
Yes. And I'm suing because it's his left hand. He cannot participate in certain activities in school because it's his left hand.
Should have watched him more carefully, Miss Davis. You're his mother. Why didn't you watch him?
I was not in the apartment.
I thought you said you were in the apartment.
Miss Wallace, he was in Miss Wallace's care as I was in the hallway. Now,
just a second. What do you mean he was? Shh, just a second.
Your Honor, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought you just told me you were socializing with your aunt.
We was engaging in conversation.
Who was?
Me and the other tenants that live inside the projects. There was an incident in the building, and I was standing in the hallway. I was not in the apartment at the present time.
Just a second. You didn't leave him in her care. Just because she stayed in the apartment and minded her own business, you went outside to mind somebody else's business. If you were so concerned about your son's welfare, you should have stayed in the apartment.
You're right, Your
Why
Honor.
do you blame somebody else?
No, I'm not blaming her at that matter. I'm blaming her because we do conjugate like that.
Fine. Well, then why are you blaming her and suing her for this incident that occurred that had no fault on her part?
Okay.
None at all. Her daughter was playing with your son. He ran after her in the bathroom.
Yes.
She slammed the door.
Yes.
And he got his finger caught in the door because he
Yes.
put his finger in the door. Why should she pay you $5,000?
Why? Because while we was there, no one ever, Christina never apologized. Plus, because of his, this is permanent defective.
But
He
that
has to
doesn't
have
mean that
surgery.
just because he's got a permanent injury doesn't mean that your aunt is liable for that injury.
Why not? If it was done in her house in...
You brought your child there.
Yes.
You are responsible to supervise your child, not her. You.
Yes.
If you had brought your child there and said to her, will you supervise and take care of Ralik while I go to the store?
But Your Honor...
I'm speaking.
Okay.
And she said, I will take care of him. Then you might have a case against her for inadequate supervision.
Yes, Your Honor.
But you're there. You're his mother. He's hurt.
Yes.
He's hurt while in your care. Just because you walked outside to be a yenta in the hallway doesn't mean because you left her in the apartment that she's responsible. No, Miss Davis. You're still responsible.
Your Honor, she knew I was going in the hallway.
That doesn't mean anything if she knew you were going in the hallway, Miss Davis. Doesn't mean anything. She has to assume the responsibility and say to you, I will take care of your son while you go out.
Yes, Your Honor. This is how it was.
No, it wasn't. Stop making it up as you're going along.
Never.
Your case is dismissed, Miss Davis. I want you to get a life. Be responsible. It's your son. You take care of him. Not somebody else. It's not her fault.
But, Your Honor, you didn't even look at his finger.
It doesn't make any difference what happened to his finger, madam. He's your child. You are responsible for supervising him and taking care of him. And don't make it somebody else's fault. It was your fault that you didn't watch him more carefully. If you did, he wouldn't have had his finger chopped off. It's not her fault. She went into the bathroom. They were playing. She slammed the door. His finger was in the door. You don't make a lawsuit out of nothing. Goodbye.
What's a yenta?
A talker.
Parties are excused. You may step out. Your Honor, case number 380 on the calendar in the matter of Eckert versus Zavon. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated.
Miss Eckert, you and the defendant lived together for a period of time. You claim that you loaned him some money during that time and he owes you a month's rent because when he left, he didn't give you notice, and pursuant to your agreement, he should have given you a month's notice. Mr. Zavon says that he did borrow some money from you, not as much as you are claiming, And he would have paid you back, except that because of your actions, he lost his job, he had no way to pay you back, and that you kept some of his personal property, and he has a counterclaim. When did you live together? From when to when?
April 18th, 2001 to November 2nd, 2001.
Now, what were these loans for?
Actually, he was behind on some bills, and he had asked me to pay them for him, and I agreed as long as he signed something saying that he would pay me back, which he did.
Let me see what he signed.
I'd like to see that as well.
Absolutely.
It seems as though it's been changed.
It has been changed to less than it was.
Okay.
If you look very carefully, it's been changed to, I looked at that myself. It's been changed to a lesser amount.
Those
not
aren't
a
my
great.
initials, by the way.
That's your signature, however. I've compared it with the signature on the answer. That is your signature.
It is.
So now you remember signing that agreement.
I did.
Good. Now may I have it, please?
But not for that amount.
No, not true, sir. Because the original amount on this was some $1,500 and some odd dollars, and that was changed because the Sprint bill was not $200 and some odd dollars, but only $115. So it was reduced. You see that? It was reduced, not increased.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay. You signed it. How much of this did you pay?
At the time, I wasn't able to pay.
Not at the time. At any time. How much of this did you pay?
$400.
Okay. Is that how much you paid back?
He paid back $350.
All right, he said $400. You have proof of $400?
Yes, I do. I have canceled checks. I also paid in money orders, and I don't have the receipts for those.
Okay.
But I'll be honest and say he did pay me $350, even though he doesn't have the proof of that.
Okay. $1,130. That's what's left.
Correct.
On the debt.
Mm-hmm.
And you're suing him for $2,028. Explain that to me.
Actually, on the lease agreement he signed, it says that he must give me a 30-day, 1-month notice prior to moving out. And when
Did you have a roommate before he moved in?
His friend actually moved in at the same time, and they both had the same agreement.
I asked you a question. I want you to give me the answer. Did you have a roommate before he moved in?
We all moved in at the exact same time, basically.
Are you still living in the same place?
Yes, I am.
With whom?
I have roommates now.
Okay. Now, you left, sir, November 2nd?
Yes, that's correct.
2001. Does your lease agreement provide that you give her 30 days' notice?
Yes, it does.
Did you?
No, I did not.
Why?
Because she caused me to lose my job and sabotaged my career.
Okay, now let me hear your reason why she caused you to lose your job.
Okay. At the time, I had a job, a regular job, as a guitar player in a successful rock band. We were touring and we were on the East Coast, and I borrowed the money from her because our singer had an accident and broke a rib. I didn't have any money to pay the bill at the time, and so she offered to pay it, and I accepted. She said that I could pay her back when I had the money. However, over the next few months, she became very jealous, and it started getting really out of hand. She started calling me nonstop. She started going through my mail. She started going down my phone bill and calling every number on the phone bill. As a matter of fact, I have a phone bill here where her notes are evident, where she was looking for whether it would be a man or a woman answering the phone, and whether or not she would approve.
I still don't understand how she caused you to lose your job.
She was very jealous, and so when I was out on the road touring with a rock band, there are inherently situations that arise where women can get crazy, and she was aware of this, and she became very jealous, and she wanted me to come back to Los Angeles really bad. So what she did was she started to call the singer's wife.
Did you call the singer's wife?
She's a close friend of mine.
What kind of conversation did you have with her?
I asked her if she had heard from her husband, because Mark hadn't called me in a week, and he was my boyfriend at the time, and I was very concerned and worried because I had just gone through his pants pocket and found a phone number from a girl, which I called, who is a dancer, a stripper in New Orleans. And I spoke to her on the phone, and she did confirm, you know, that she had been talking to Mark, and she actually forwarded me the emails that Mark had sent her. So it did actually confirm that he was
Okay, so what did you call this woman for?
She's just my friend. I just wanted to know if she had heard from them. I was trying to call him and contact him because we were in a relationship. So if I hadn't heard from him in 3 days, I was very upset. I was seeing, you know, I was under stress, and I was seeing, you know, I had lost some of my hair because of stress. I mean, it was just very, very bad. But he actually, after I found out,
how did that cause you to lose your job?
She's told her so many stories that she finally, the singer's wife that is, finally started to call the singer and tell him that she was filing for divorce, she was going to take their daughter, and that he would never see them again. And in order to keep the peace in his family, he had to let me go. I would have done the same thing.
That's true, so that's a lot of publicizing.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. And later today...
Did you borrow her pants? Don't tell me I don't want to hear
Yes, I borrowed them.
All right, now, when did your cousin borrow them?
Yeah.
Oh, God, give me strength.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Sherry Eckert says ex-boyfriend Mark Zavon owes for rent and for unpaid loans. Mark says Sherry is holding his belongings.
All right. You all moved into this apartment together? Is that right? And each of you were to pay $500 a month?
That's correct.
Each?
Yes.
Okay. So he owes you $1,630. He didn't give you a month's notice. That's so far. You have a counterclaim, sir? For $5,000, you claim that she caused you to lose your job.
That's correct.
That would be the reason that you just gave me, that you called the singer's wife and complained and told her a whole bunch of stories.
Yeah, he was very happy. Excuse me.
That the singer is not here, the wife is not here.
That is correct.
Okay, so that's all hearsay. That's somewhere out here that I don't hear. All right, now the next thing that you're counterclaiming for is personal property that you say that she sold at a garage sale. What's the nature of the personal property?
Well, it's basically things like a mountain bike, camping gear, grill.
Why didn't you take that with you when you moved out?
At the time, I had just flown back from Battle Creek, Michigan. They dropped me off in the middle of nowhere, you know. So I had to find my way back to Los Angeles, and I had a U-Haul. I went to get my stuff.
So you got a U-Haul?
Yes, I did. And I started to load my stuff into the truck, at which point Sherry came home, and she started to throw my stuff out into the driveway and damage my stuff. And I was just trying to get out of there as fast as possible. I just wanted to be gone.
Yeah.
And so I did my best to get everything I could.
Yeah.
But I was unable to get everything.
That was in November of 2001. Is that right?
And I've tried to get my stuff back since then.
Well, what have you done?
I asked her if she would give me my stuff back, and she said that she would if I paid her the money that I owed her. So I began paying her some money in order to get my stuff back. But I never received one thing. She would say that she would give me the stuff back, and then she would change her mind. And I never did get one thing back.
Go ahead.
Your Honor, actually, the camping gear he's talking about is a sleeping bag, which I purchased. Here's the receipt. And
you purchased it for whom?
For when we were going to go on a camping trip, but it was been returned. It got returned within the same week.
It was a gift.
So when he's talking about camping gear, it's something I own. The things that he's talking about are my things. He got everything that out of there.
Just a
he
second.
was talking
Let me
about
see your list. Let me see your list.
The bike, I don't even know what he's talking about. He never left a bike or any property there. There's nothing there.
Mountain bike, space heater?
I never saw it. I don't know what he's talking about.
Weight bench?
That's actually Todd's, his friend's weight bench. It's not his.
What about the incline bench?
That's also Todd's. That's not Mark's.
I don't know what she's talking about. This is all my property.
No. Well, then, I feel like he had a U-Haul that was a huge truck, and before I got home, he had the whole thing packed. So I don't know why he didn't just take anything that he felt was left behind.
I don't know either. And I don't know why. And I don't know why he waited for a year to come after all this stuff. Anyway, in any event, you didn't pay any rent. Is that right?
I paid rent right up until the time that I was
you didn't pay any rent after you moved out, did you?
No, I did not.
Right, then you should have come to get all this stuff.
I tried to, but she wouldn't let me come over, and I didn't want to come over if it...
Then what you do is you go to court.
That's
do you understand?
true. Yes,
what you do is you sue. What do you expect her to do? Hold on to all this stuff for a year?
I tried to get it back continuously.
Then what you tried by going to court, just like you did now.
I understand.
And you do so promptly.
Yes, ma'am.
It's easy. It's easy for her. She's got an IOU. IOU makes it easy. A lease makes it easy. But you don't leave a whole bunch of stuff, if this is your property, for a year and then say, oh, by the by, I want my property back. So you forget about that. You owe her $1,630. Isn't that what I said? $1,630?
$1,630.
Pay the money. Goodbye.
Please excuse. You may step out.
It was a jealous nightmare.
His unfaithfulness and his cheating and his liaisons with groupies on the tour bus actually was the breaking point of the relationship.
She really didn't like the whole idea of someone being out on the road.
He couldn't stay faithful.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Doss versus Harold. Step forward, please.
18-year-old student Jennifer Doss is suing her former best friend, 18-year-old student Nicole Harold, for unpaid rent, damage to her car, and for ruining a pair of slacks.
Ms. Doss, the defendant is or was a friend of yours, and your claim has three parts to it. First, it is your claim that she owes you for rent. She moved in with you and your family, and according to you, agreed to pay your mother some rent. She didn't pay your mother rent, you paid your mother, and therefore you want her to repay you. So far correct?
Yes.
Number two, you claim that she set fire to the inside of your car with a cigarette and damaged it. You wanted to pay for that. And number three, you say that she borrowed some clothes of yours, a pair of jeans, and destroyed them, damaged them by cutting off the bottoms, and you wanted to replace the jeans.
They're not jeans, they're dress pants.
Pants. The defendant says you burned the car yourself or somebody else did. She didn't do it. There was never an agreement for rent, and your pants don't fit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why did you move into her house?
I was having family problems at my aunt's house, and I guess I was with her. We were at Firestone Park, this park we were at.
Don't go into all this. I don't care where you were at.
Okay.
You were having family problems at home, and she invited you to come and live with her?
Yeah, she said it would be okay for me to stay.
Okay.
And there was never no agreement. Her mom said if I had a job to help around, like help out, if I had a job.
When you moved, listen to me. Why don't you let me ask questions? When you moved in with her, were you working?
No.
Is that right?
Yes.
So how did you expect her to pay rent?
Well, me and my mom tried several times. We went and put in applications. Me and Nicole both, we went together.
Could you keep your voice up? You went to put in applications for what?
Well, we went to Rubbermaid and...
To find a job?
Yes.
But at the time she moved in with you, she had no job.
Yes.
So how did you expect her to pay rent?
We were going to get a job.
But she didn't get a job.
No.
Good. So there's no rent. You think that I believe that you gave your mother rent for her? Do you think I believe that? That's what you say in your complaint. Is that what you're going to tell me here in court, that you gave your mother rent for her?
Yes, I did.
I don't believe you. How's that? Next thing is your car. Tell me about your car.
Well, me and Nicole went up to Chapel Hill Mall, and she was smoking, and we met up with one of her friends, and she asked me if I wanted to go over to their house. I said fine, because we weren't doing nothing at the time. We were just driving around. And when we pulled up in front of their house, she went to put her cigarette out on a Taco Bell cup, and she dropped her cigarette, and it went under the seat. And she told me that she put it out, and when I turned on my dome light, there was smoke coming out from under my seat, and I started yelling at Nicole, and she still insisted that she put it out. And then when I reached my hand under the seat, I found the cigarette, and I had burn holes in my seat and on my floor.
And what about on your hand?
No, I didn't have them on my hand.
Well, was the cigarette out or not?
It was a little bit out, but by the time I found it, it was out.
And let me see the damage to your car.
And there was also a time where she burnt the ceiling because she didn't roll down the window far enough to flick it out, and I also have pictures of that, too.
What is this, on the seat?
Yes, on the bottom of the seat.
Underneath?
Yes.
Can you see it when you look at the car?
No.
And what about this?
That's the ceiling.
Okay. So you can't see the cigarette hole when you look at your car. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, you fill up under the seat and you can feel it.
Did you fix it?
No, I have not yet.
Are you going to fix it?
Yes, I am.
Why?
Because I just bought my car 4 months before that happened, and I'm trying to trade it in so I don't have all these...
Well, maybe if you don't tell anybody, they won't know that there's a little hole underneath the seat where you have to put your hand.
Well, the dealership already knows about it.
Who told them?
I did, because I wanted to get it fixed.
Did you put out a cigarette in her car?
I put it at the top on accident. The top I did, the little burn
So
hole.
this you did?
Yeah, one. There's like a lot of them, but I did one.
There were a lot of them. From where?
From the back seat when she had like tons of people in the back and smoking. She like crowded people in her back seat.
Is that true?
I have a paper right here. It said that there was no other burn holes found when the guy inspected my car.
It was under the seat.
He
There's people in
inspected the
back
whole
and it
car.
fell.
So the answer is you did burn a hole in her car. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, not the ground, not the seat.
Just this?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yes.
Shouldn't let people smoke in your car. All right, let's talk about the pants. Did you borrow her pants?
Them
Don't tell me I don't want to hear I can tell when you're telling me the truth. I can tell when you're lying. So I don't care what you wrote in your answer.
Okay.
Forget about that. Did you borrow her pants?
Yes, I borrowed them.
All right, now, that's good. Not your cousin, you borrowed her pants. And did you cut her pants?
No, my cousin Jamie did.
But
And I
you
told
borrowed,
her.
but you borrowed them.
Yeah. So
And
did
you're
Jamie.
responsible.
She borrowed it too, Jamie, when we were all going to the club. And I told her the next day that Jamie cut them, and she said, I don't know, she said something to Jamie.
Explain that to me.
All right.
You borrowed the
Yeah.
pants?
Yeah, I borrowed them once.
And then you returned them to her?
I was living with her.
You returned them to her?
Yeah, but it wasn't cut up yet.
When did your cousin borrow them?
Yeah. When we...
Oh, God, give me strength. Not yeah. When requires a date.
It was after I wore them. Because when she first got it...
Who did she borrow them from?
Her.
Is that right?
Jamie never wore these. She had a different outfit of mine on.
Did she ever borrow them from you?
Nicole did, but Jamie did not.
Really?
Yes.
Let me see the bottom.
They're cut up over on this side, and right here.
Now, you understand that in your answer, you said to me that you never borrowed her pants because her pants wouldn't fit you.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a So that was a lie. Is that right?
Right.
You both lie. How could you both lie? Why would you both lie in court? Isn't that a stupid thing? You didn't pay your mother any rent, and you, in fact, did borrow her pants. And you did cause some damage to her car. You should be responsible for that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
Okay, good. How many people smoked in your car within the last month?
None. There has not been no smoking in my car since Nicole burnt the bottom of my seat.
Then let's say prior to Nicole burning the hole in your car. How many people smoked in your car?
Maybe about 3 or 4, not that many.
3 or 4 is a lot of people. I thought you told me in your complaint that you had a no-smoking car.
I do, but I told everybody that smoked in my car, if they can smoke responsibly, they can smoke in my car. But if they can't, I don't want them smoking in my car.
Can I see those pants, please? Tell me about why you moved out.
Me and her got in an argument, and
What'd you get into an argument about?
Guys or something. Like, we were at her boyfriend's house, and ever since then, we weren't talking anymore.
So you moved back home?
Yeah.
All right. How much did you pay for these pants?
They were $42 for the whole outfit. I have a letter from the place where I got them from.
Can I see that card, please? When did you buy them?
Probably about a year ago.
Did you ever wear them?
Yes, I have.
How many times did you wear them?
Maybe twice.
Okay. And they were $42. I'm giving you $300 for the hole in your car and $42 for the pants. You got nothing for the rent because that was a fib. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $342. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out. This is case number 440 on the calendar in the matter of Sullivan versus Sims. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Ma'am, have a seat, please.
Miss Sullivan, I assume this is your daughter, is that right? And this is your son-in-law?
Yes. Yes, Your Honor.
According to your complaint, your daughter and son-in-law purchased a car that was for your benefit.
Mm-hmm.
That was back in
March
of last year.
Correct.
And the agreement was that you would make a monthly payment that would cover the car payment and insurance.
Correct.
To your daughter and son-in-law.
Correct.
And you would have the car, and when the car was paid off, I assume it would be yours. Is that right?
Yes, Your Honor.
So far correct?
Yes, ma'am.
You did have the car for a period of time. Then you had an accident with the car in a parking lot. And you called your son-in-law.
Yes.
According to you, you put a note on the car.
Yes.
Did you put the note on the other car, or did your son-in-law?
I put it on the car that I hit, right next to me.
On the note was?
My name, phone number, and that I worked next door at Randall's, and the phone number.
You believe he took the note off the car you hit?
Yes.
Because they never contacted you.
Correct.
And there was damage to that car.
Yes.
You didn't do that, did you, Mr. Sims?
No, ma'am.
And shortly thereafter, Mr. Sims repossessed the car and sold it. You are suing, according to your complaint, for the whole value of the car.
Correct.
Which you're not entitled to. So let's be realistic. Let's say you're suing for the payments that you made on the car. April, May, June, July, and August, if you made the 5 months' worth of payments.
Mm-hmm. And I did not miss a payment.
Okay.
I was told...
And that's your statement. I did not miss a payment. That was our agreement, and he had no right to take the car back, and therefore I want the payments. How much were your payments each month?
Well, he told me $200 when we signed the original agreement. $200 a month, that included insurance.
How much was the insurance on the car, Mr. Sims?
$62.96.
Mr. Sims, how much did you pay for the car?
I purchased the car for $1,500. I put $600 worth of repairs to the car because I purchased it damaged.
Okay, and you sold it when?
About 2 weeks ago.
And how much did you sell it for?
$3,200.
And how much did you pay to fix it as a result of the accident that your mother-in-law had?
What she did, she bent the door around to the fender.
Just tell me how much you paid to fix it.
$150, but it didn't fix it correctly. It just made the door open and close. It did not repair the car back to the original condition.
Say nothing. Yet. Say nothing yet.
All right.
So let's say you spent $2,200 on the car.
Correct.
You sold it for $3,200, giving you $1,000 profit, and your mother-in-law gave you $137 a month times 5 equals $685.35. So you got that too.
Correct.
So this is going to take care of your counterclaim, because you're suing her for $660 for miscellaneous damages incurred in relation to the car. That's your counterclaim. That's out, because you had no loss, sir. You have a profit.
All right, I understand.
You have a profit. Sure. So you suffered no damage. So your counterclaim is dismissed. Now, let's talk about what your mother-in-law wants.
Okay, I need to speak.
Now I'm ready.
He works at a body shop. He didn't pay nothing to have that car fixed.
I don't care whether he did or whether he didn't.
And he raised the payments.
That has nothing to do with you.
He raised my payments from
To
$200 to $230 a month.
When did he
Before
change?
I made the first payment, I'm sorry.
Just a second.
April.
Okay,
April
230.
11th. He raised it.
Is that right, sir?
Well,
is that right or wrong? She has proof. I'm sure she has checks or whatever. Is that
yeah,
correct?
we agreed on the raise of the payment. It was due to the insurance increase.
So we have 230 less 62.96, 167.04 times 5, $835.20. I'm going to give you 1 minute, Mr. Sims, to explain to me why you don't think that you owe your mother-in-law $835.20.
We had an agreement that she was going to purchase the car, like you said. But also in that agreement, no one was supposed to drive the car. Well, she was letting the other brother-in-law drive the car, which I had a witness see him in the car. Also, she took the car to Chicago against my wishes, taking it out of town. Our original agreement was that the car was mine. I purchased the car, put it in my name, I put the insurance in my name, I registered it in my name, and I told her, here's the car, this is what we're going to do. You pay the car to me each month, and then when the 13 months are over, I'll sign it over to you, do whatever you like. But in the time that you're driving the vehicle, the liability is on me with my insurance and everything covering me. I don't want anyone driving it. Drive it, do your errands, run back and forth to work. But I don't want the car leaving the state. I don't want the car going anywhere. Just keep it here in town.
Now, Mrs. Sims, I read that. I read your defense, sir. However, your problem is you didn't take it back from her then.
Okay, you're right.
You took it back from her when she had an accident in the parking lot.
I didn't take it back from her. What she did, she was letting people drive the car. Then when she damaged the car, then when she damaged the vehicle, she brought the car to me and handed me the keys and wanted me to fix the vehicle. The daughter-in-law got upset with me and mad because I wouldn't file an insurance claim against my own policy to make me pay the increase over the next 3 years. And so they started feuding all over again. That's when I talked with her and I asked her, hey, we need to do something different here. Can you go get a loan for the balance due on the car? I can sign the car to you and we can quit all this fighting and carrying on and be done with it. You can do what you like. She agreed to go get her own loan.
Stop playing with the papers.
Sorry.
She went out, tried 2 or 3 different banks. No one would loan her the money because of her past history and her credit. It's so horrible she couldn't get it. So then she comes to me and says, you know what, I'm going to save the money for 6 weeks. Can you hold the car 6 weeks and I'll pay you in full? 4 weeks go by. She calls my wife and says, I got $20 to my name. I can't pay it. I said, okay, what are we going to do now? She said, well, I'm just going to take you to court and sue you for my interest. I said, well, how about I give you all your money back? I offered to give her every penny she paid, including the insurance. She agreed to that too. Then on Sunday morning, she calls and tells me, no, she don't want to do that either.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I don't know whether or not you took off the note, if there was a note placed on the other car in the parking lot. If you did, that was a foul thing to do.
And later today,
the vet told us there was no way the cat could have broken its leg in 5 places just from tossing off the side. She had to have been pretty much slammed to the ground to have broken it the way it did.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Phyllis Sullivan says son-in-law Chip Sims repossessed her car for absolutely no reason. Chip says Phyllis has been irresponsible with the vehicle.
What you should have done, Miss Sullivan, is take him up on his offer. Because if he was willing to give you all the money that you paid in the car, including the insurance, you should have accepted it. Because from me, you're only going to get the money that you paid on the car itself, less the insurance.
Your Honor.
Yeah, what?
The car, I mean, this was a business contract. I couldn't get a loan because I filed bankruptcy.
Show me the business contract.
Right?
Show me the contract. Show me what it says. Show me
Can
the
I say
contract.
something?
Nobody drove that car. His so-called character witness has a warrant for his arrest for hitting a police officer.
Would you please stop talking and hand me the contract?
I'm sorry.
You don't have one.
There's the contract. This is my thing from bankruptcy. And
No, listen to me. I asked you for the contract.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Did you ever have a conversation with your mother about somebody else driving the car?
Yes, ma'am.
Step up. Tell me when.
Less than a month into the deal with the car.
Tell me
about
what
2
the
weeks into
conversation
it.
was.
I called her to let her know that we had spoken to a fellow family member who saw someone else driving the car. When I asked her about it, she proceeded to cry and say, I would never do something like that. You told me you didn't want anyone driving the car. I wouldn't do that. I would never hurt you or Chip like that. That's our agreement. I wouldn't let someone drive the car.
Okay. I have to make a determination as to what your damages are, Miss Sullivan.
Okay.
And by the way, Mr. Sims, I don't know whether or not you took off the note, if there was a note placed on the other car in the parking lot. If you did, that was a foul thing to do. Otherwise, I cannot understand why somebody would not have contacted you to have their car fixed. It's not reasonable that if you come out and you see somebody left their name and number and said, I hit your car,
Right.
that they would not contact that person unless the note was taken off the car. In any event, I believe that you're entitled to, based upon this agreement, you're entitled to your money back, because this agreement says that if at any time I default upon my payments, Ronald has the right to take the car back, and I will forfeit any payments already made. She never defaulted on her payments, so you had no right to take her car back.
I didn't take the car back. She brought the car to me.
I don't believe that's true. And I believe that you made a profit. Now, just shh, quiet. I believe that you made a profit on the car. You don't have to make a really handsome profit. So instead of making $1,838, you're only going to make $1,000 worth of profit.
$1,800 because she'd already filed this suit once, which I had to hire an attorney to fight her the first time, that she never showed up to court. I had
Well,
to
I don't
fight
have
my-
that. Listen to me,
had the
Mr.
dismissal.
Sims. Mr. Sims.
I've got the original court
I
date
don't
and a
have
dismissal
listen to-
from it.
Pay careful attention to me, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't have that as part of a counterclaim.
Right.
In any event, what I'm telling you is, you have the right, if you sold the car, you made a profit. Your profit was in excess of $1,000.
Well,
Because
I kept the car for 5 months waiting to solve this case, waiting to go to court, which we had our court date. She didn't appear.
What difference does it make, sir? What difference does it make as far as the profit that you made?
Right, exactly.
She put in $835.20. That's less the insurance over a 5-month period, and she's entitled to get it back under your contract. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I just want them out of my life. I just want to go on about my own life and let her live her life, let me live mine.
He couldn't claim it on his insurance because he's got too many other insurance claims going on.
This isn't the first time in my life my mother's disappointed me.
My son-in-law, Chip, told me that I'm putting the stake in the family.
We warned her before she filed this suit to let her know she would never see me and she would never see her grandson again. She continued to do it, and I'm going to stand by my word.
I'm very hurt. I'm going to miss my daughter and my grandson.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Block versus Ulrich. Step forward, please.
Loan officer Chris Block and his wife Deanna are suing their neighbor, cleaning company vice president Steve Ulrich, for vet bills. The Blocks claim the son of Steve's girlfriend, 12-year-old Dustin Miller, threw their kitten down a flight of stairs.
Mr. and Mrs. Block, who's going to speak for you?
I will.
Okay. Neither one of you were home at the time of this incident with the kitten?
No.
Okay. Who was home?
Both kids, I believe, right? No. My son?
Very good. So why don't you have a seat, the two of you? Step up. Mr. Ulrich, this is not your son. You are his guardian, is that right?
Yes, Your Honor.
You weren't there on the 3rd of October, is that right?
Yes.
You were not there.
I was not there.
Why don't you have a seat? Step up here, young man. What's your first name?
Devin.
Devin?
Yeah.
And yours?
Dustin.
All right, this is the complaint. On behalf of Mr. and Mrs. Block, they had a kitten, and they claim that Dustin purposely injured their kitten, causing the kitten's leg to break, and the kitten had to have leg reset. There were substantial medical bills, and they want the defendant to be responsible for those medical bills, you or his mother. The defendant says that Dustin was merely defending himself from this kitten. So let's see what happened. Devin?
Yes.
I want you to tell me what happened on October 3rd with your kitten. How old, first of all, tell me how old the kitten is.
When it happened?
Yes.
About 4 months.
And Dustin was a friend of yours?
Yeah.
Did he play over at your house often?
Yes.
Okay, did Dustin like the kitten?
Yeah.
Tell me what happened that day.
Well, we were playing video games, and he said he's going to go to the bathroom, and then he comes back, and he says that I didn't really go to the bathroom, I went to go play with the kitten. Well, later that night, she was limping and crying, and you'd touch her leg, she would cry, and we asked him when he went to go play with the cat if he did something, but he said that she was biting him and that he just got angry and annoyed and he tossed her off the stairs.
Tell me what happened, Dustin.
I was playing with the kitten when it bit me, and then
Well, tell me exactly where you were when you were playing with the kitten and it bit you.
I was on the stairs.
What do you mean on the stairs?
Like, the kitten was on the stairs, so I was, like, sitting and petting it.
And the kitten bit you?
Yes.
So what happened after the kitten bit you?
Like, I pulled my hand back to get it off, and it fell off the stairs.
How did it fall off the stairs?
The stairs is not that wide, so when I was sitting down, I was kind of near the edge of this, where the stairwell would be.
Isn't there a railing?
No.
Is there a railing?
No, Your Honor. We removed it after we moved in. I have some pictures.
I'd like to see it.
And there's some pictures of after Penn was removed.
Oh, I see. So there is no railing. Who else was there when he confessed?
My mom and my sister.
Well, I'd like to hear from you. Yes. Tell me about the discussion that you had with Dustin that evening.
Well, at first when we'd asked, because I saw the cat was limping and nobody would say anything, so I kept asking the kids over and over again what had happened. Dustin was kind of nervous, and Devin told me that he had left the room, and then it told me about him playing with the cat. So I said, Dustin, what happened? Just tell us what happened. And then he said that when he was playing with her, that she started to bite him. So at first he said he went like this and just threw her down the stairs. Then I said, well, there had to have been more than that. So I kept asking him, and then he said, well, he went like this over the edge. And he said, so then he threw her that way.
So he didn't say he picked her up and threw her over the side?
No, but...
Okay. I just want to know what he said.
Okay.
You're 12?
Yeah.
And you're 12?
Yeah.
Well, they're certainly old enough to be home alone by themselves. So I can't fault you for not being there to supervise, but I also am not going to make an order that his parents be responsible for the medical bills for your cat. I mean, I don't think that he purposely did anything to hurt your cat. The cat nips because it's a kitten. But again, he's 12 years old. He doesn't have the intellect, you know, of somebody who's an adult. And he wanted to get the cat off. So let's say he took his hand and went like that, and the cat went over on the side as a reflex. There's nothing more than a reflex to get the cat off. You still think that he's responsible to pay for the vet bills for the cat?
Only because the vet told us there was no way the cat could have broken its leg in 5 places just from tossing off the side. She had to have been pretty much slammed to the ground to have broken it the way it did.
Did you ever have any indication that this young man would do anything to hurt an animal?
Well, the fact that he knew she was hurt and went back to play video games like nothing had happened.
Well, that's not a good thing, right? Tell me why you did that.
Well, first of all, I didn't know the cat was hurt.
Just a second. After the cat goes over, whether you went like this to get the cat off you because the cat was biting you, or whether you pushed the cat down the stairs to get the cat off of you, you had to have sat there for a second and watched what happened when the cat got up, didn't you?
Yeah.
Did you see the cat limping?
No.
Well, I don't necessarily believe that, Dustin. When you came back inside, did you tell Devin what had happened with the cat?
No.
Why not?
Because I didn't really know, I didn't really think it was like a huge deal, because when the cat fell, it wasn't moving afterwards when I went up, back upstairs.
It wasn't moving?
No, but...
Well, weren't you worried if it wasn't moving? Dustin?
It was standing.
Do you have an animal at home? You have a dog or a cat?
Bird.
What if your bird was bothering somebody by chirping, and the person had a headache, and it went over and it rattled the cage really hard, and the bird fell to the ground and broke a leg? Would you be angry?
Yes.
Would you think that the person ought to tell you that that's what happened?
Yes.
Do you think that you would have any responsibility, or that they would have any responsibility
like, they would have some responsibility, but we would also have some, because it was our bird that would got on the person's nerves.
The birds do what birds do. Yes. Birds sing. Kittens nip. And if you don't like it when the kitten is nipping you, then you don't play with the kitten. But Mrs. Block, I don't think that he did this on purpose. And I don't think that his parents had any indication that he had a predisposition to cruelty to animals, which in my judgment would make them responsible. If you have children in your house and you choose to leave 12-year-olds in your house unsupervised, you're pretty much responsible for what goes on there. So I'm sorry, but your case is dismissed. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out. This is case number 453 on the calendar in the matter of Magliazzo versus Conroy. Parties have been sworn in. Judge, you may be seated. Ma'am, have a seat.
Miss Magliazzo, this is your son. Tell me his name.
Dylan Magliazzo.
Dylan. All right, he's going to stand right behind you. According to your complaint, your son was run over by the defendant in a parking lot.
Right.
Is there somebody who can take care of him outside?
My brother.
Well, do you want to take him outside and let your brother take care of him?
Mommy.
Good. According to your complaint, the defendant ran over your son's leg in a parking lot. He was in a truck, and you want him to pay your medical bills and for your son's pain and suffering.
Right.
Mr. Conroy said, in effect, you should have been watching him more closely as he was running around the parking lot. I might have responded somewhat differently, Mr. Conroy. What kind of truck were you driving that day, sir?
A Dodge pickup truck.
Big truck.
Half-ton.
And your son suffered no broken legs. Is that right, madam?
Right.
If a half-ton truck ran over a 2-year-old's leg, which according to you happened, that child would not have walked out of this courtroom today.
Well, he did.
Impossible. Impossible for him to have run over the child's leg with a half-ton truck and not had a broken bone. And if he did, he was a very lucky little boy. Very lucky. So if he was so lucky, what I want to know from you is, why are you here?
First of all, when he did hit my son...
Just a second. Let's go back. So you're really going to go through with this. You're in a parking lot. Is that right? What were you doing in the parking lot?
My son wasn't running around
What were you doing in the parking lot?
Standing out front. My son wanted to watch
Shh. You were standing out front of what?
the parking lot where my son's father lives.
You have a picture of where this happened?
I do.
Can I see it, please? What time of the year was this?
August.
So there was no snow on the ground like there is in this picture. I want you to have her take a pen, Bird, and mark down where she was standing with the child at first, and then where the child was allegedly run over by the defendant. Where she was standing?
Right here.
And where the child was run over by the...
Right here.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. That's where she was, and that's where she says the child was hit.
So you tell me what happened, madam. You're standing outside the parking lot with your son.
Right. And my son wanted to watch the electric company. They were putting power lines there. He wanted to see the big trucks. So we're standing out there. My son's...
How many people? You, your son, and who else?
10 or 12 other people.
Were there other children?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
My son had walked away from me, and I went to go grab him. And Mr. Conroy pulled in the parking lot and then reversed his truck back. Obviously didn't look in his mirrors to see that my son was behind his truck. Hit my son in his head, knocked him over, then was on top of my son's leg. Me and my son's father were screaming and yelling, banging on the man's truck to get off my son's leg. He just looked at us like he didn't know what was going on or anything. Like, it's not even that he didn't know what was going on. We told him, you're on my son's leg, get off my son's leg, and he just looked at us like we were out of it. And finally, after the electric company, the guys from the electric company ran over and everybody ran over, I think he finally realized he was on my son's leg. Well, he pulled his truck up, got off my son's leg, not coming over to see if my son's okay. If he hurt my son, not asking...
When he got off your son's leg, who picked up your son?
I did.
Then did you put him down on the ground?
No.
You didn't let him walk to see if he was okay?
Oh, I picked him up, yeah, and he couldn't even stand on his leg. His leg was like that swollen. I then immediately took him to the emergency room.
Why weren't you watching him more carefully?
I was watching him.
No, you weren't.
He obviously wasn't watching where he's going because he knows kids are in that parking lot every day.
Listen to me, madam. You weren't watching him carefully enough.
So that gives him the right to not...
Listen to me, madam. You weren't watching him carefully enough. How old was he?
2.
And you're in a parking lot, is that right?
In front of a parking lot.
You're in a parking lot.
Right.
Now, I have 8 grandchildren, and I'm still have sufficient brain power to remember when my children were little. When my children were little and I had a 2-year-old, or when I'm walking around with one of my 2-year-old grandchildren in a parking lot, they hold my...
He did have my hand.
He did have your hand?
Yeah.
Oh, well then, shh, quiet. He did have your hand. Then is what you're telling me that when Mr. Conroy hit him and knocked him over, you were holding onto his hand?
No.
So you weren't holding his hand?
No.
Right. What I'm saying to you, madam, is when I'm in a parking lot with my 2-year-old grandchild, or I see my children walking with their children when we pull into a parking lot, we're going someplace, they run out, grab the hand, because they know they're not allowed to cross a street without holding somebody's hand. They're not allowed to be in a parking lot without holding somebody's hand. So
right, but
you weren't holding his hand.
I mean, if you drive a truck, don't you look in your mirrors to see if there's anybody behind you?
I'm not saying that he's without fault. I'm saying to me, you seem to think it's all his fault, and it's not.
Oh, I know it's
You're the parent. It's primarily your fault. Now, should he have been watching where he was going? Absolutely. And should he have been more careful if he saw a lot of other people there? Absolutely. And sometimes there's a little child dart out so that even if you are careful, you could miss him? Absolutely. You're not supposed to miss him. That's your only job.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
How am I to know if he was drunk?
How am I to know you weren't drunk?
Oh,
Only a parent who might be drunk or under the influence of something would let a 2-year-old march around by himself in a parking lot. That's what you did. That's what you did.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Amy Magliazzo says her 2-year-old son Dylan was run over by Michael Conroy. Michael says the boy was running around in the parking lot of a bar.
Your only job and his father's only job that day was to make sure that your 2-year-old was holding on to an adult's hand in a parking lot. Right?
Right.
Right. And if you weren't, so that you were acting irresponsibly as a parent, and if you're lucky enough to have gotten away with a warning from God that this is what can happen to you. You can lose your child if you're not more careful, because he wasn't hurt, because he clearly walked out of here.
He has sleeping problems.
That's your problem.
No, it's not.
Well, whose is it? His?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you that's what a lawyer told you. Did you go to see a lawyer?
Yeah.
Now, what'd the lawyer tell you? Pretty much the same thing as what I'm telling you? That's why you're here. Well, he says you have a child in a parking lot. You're supposed to hold their hand.
Does that give him the right to not see?
It's not a matter of right. Don't you seem to get it? He's driving in a truck, and I'm not saying he's without blame. You walked in here saying to me it's all his fault. He ran over my child. He didn't care. He was callous. We kept knocking on the window. You think that this man had a predetermined position to knock your son over, a 2-year-old over, run him over, and when you were banging at the door to tell him to get off your son, that he said, hell with them, I'm just going to keep my truck on his legs?
No, because how am I to know if he was drunk?
How are you to know? I don't know. How am I to know you weren't drunk?
Oh, I was
Only a parent who might be drunk or under the influence of something would let a 2-year-old march around by himself in a parking lot. That's what you did. That's what you did. Now, let me see the medical bills, and let me see the report from the police.
One of the medical bills was already paid.
Good.
By his
That's what you're
insurance
supposed to
company.
do. Then I'll get to you, Mr. Conroy. Now, when did the police contact you, Mr. Conroy?
About an hour and a half to 2 hours after the accident.
Why did you go home?
Because I waited around about 45 minutes to an hour. Police to come, talk to the father. I said, if anybody comes, contact me.
Okay. Final reports. No fracture, no dislocation, and everything else is normal there. Then we go to 3 days later. They also found nothing wrong with the child at that point, and you took the child in there because you said he was having trouble sleeping.
He was waking up crying, saying in the truck.
The reason that you could not get a lawyer to take your case is because your son was not injured. Not every act requires people to take the matter a step further and bring on a lawsuit. You should feel, as I indicated before to you, very, very lucky that despite what could have happened to your son, because you were not vigilant in taking care of him, and because Mr. Conroy probably should have been more careful when he was driving his truck when he saw other kids and people around in the parking lot, despite that, your son was not hurt. The only thing that was reported by you was 3 days later, you went back to the hospital and you said he's having trouble sleeping. That's why you could not get a lawyer to take your case, because in order for there to be liability, there has to be an injury, and there was none. Now, it's possible that your son's going to have, even at his age, a bad recollection for a while about what happened when he was knocked down by a truck. That's possible, but it will pass.
Right.
He was 2 years old.
But it's a...
And it will pass.
But it's a sleeping disorder. It's a post-traumatic sleeping disorder.
Let me explain something to you, madam. Don't tell me what it is. Are you a psychiatrist?
No, but that's what the doctors...
I'm not interested in what you tell me that the doctors say, because that's not what it says here. And I'm telling you, you're going to have another baby?
Yes.
This is your second child?
Third.
Third child. How old are you?
19.
19. I would suggest that you pay more careful attention to your children at age 19. It's your job to take care of them. At 19, you shouldn't have 3 children to begin with. If you have to take care of them.
I do take care of my kids.
And not put the responsibility of taking care of your children onto somebody else. It was not his responsibility to watch out for your child in the parking lot that day. It was your responsibility and his child's father. And the fact that there was almost an accident, a tragic accident, because your son could have been really hurt or killed or worse, is not his fault. It's your fault. He is partially responsible, and if the child was hurt, I might have found him partially responsible for the child's medical bills.
So it's okay.
But he was not hurt. And for that, you should say, thank God, and not bring a lawsuit. Your case is dismissed. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I screamed for him to get off my son's leg, and he just looked at me.
When I did hear him, I did stop. That's why I didn't run over the child.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter.